Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Stephen?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Stephen Billings, and with me as always is my just amazingly just good-looking and smart co-host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Fantastic. I'm doing better now. Thank you for the compliments.
Yeah, no problem, man. No
I
problem.
always need them.
I
mean,
yeah.
I never shy away from them because I don't get them often enough.
You're
So
welcome, man.
take all the compliments you can
I
get.
get
I
you.
need all the reassurance. Yeah, so we're back here once again with spine number 89.
89.
So we're closing out the 80s.
It's a good
I
year.
guess.
It's a good year.
It's a good year. I knew you were gonna make that reference because I
man.
made one when we did 87.
Yeah.
So I figure you might as well get yours in while you can, because it's the last
It's the last
year we
time-
can
last
make
chance
those
I'll get
birthday
it.
references.
Until we get till we get to episode 1989.
or just episode 187 or 189 or whatever.
Nah, it
but
feels better when we get to when we like 89's the short version of 1989, and then
right.
I have to wait till 1989 now. So
I mean, if we did this every day, which would make no sense, we would have gotten there already.
All right, so
probably.
today's announcement is
one movie.
Yeah, one fucking movie. Here it is.
Here
But I
this
mean,
one
today's
movie.
attention spans that we would probably do well. Like it would.
I'll just say, I mean, literally, I mean, on YouTube, you could do a video every day. They have the whole shorts thing that they've got,
Yeah,
where you can just
yeah.
do like a short video, which is basically taking the idea from like Instagram
It's the
or
it's a
like TikTok
Yeah.
or whatever, and just utilizing that there. But that YouTube for me always seems like a longer form video thing.
It's a place that's shifted in its not only in how people use it, but how YouTube lets you use it.
Right.
So it's
Because I feel like making a 1 minute YouTube video is not quite worth it.
Yeah.
For me, when I was always doing the movie reviews or Blu-ray reviews, I feel like 10 minutes was like a good barometer in terms of making videos. Once upon a time, YouTube only let you make like a video that was a certain length.
Yeah.
Many years ago. Now they've just opened it up to where you can have 24 hours straight of.
We're gonna do a movie-a-thon.
Nothing.
Let's do it for 24 straight hours. Yeah.
I've seen people do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can do it. I've seen people do it on Twitch. I've seen.
I'd love to
and
challenge
it's like,
I'd love
damn.
to challenge myself and see how long I could do a podcast for straight, like without stopping.
I just don't want people to be looking at me that long or hearing me that long.
Oh, I mean, I don't
need
even
my
know if
I
my
need my
voice
private
could
time.
last for talking for that long.
It can barely last for the 2 hours
I know.
or 3 hours that we go on.
You're
here.
almost dying every time we do a podcast. You're like, like getting water in your eyes up to make sure they're not dry.
Oh yeah,
Your
I
voice
have
is going. Yeah.
incredibly chronic dry eye
Yeah.
syndrome. So it's like if my eyes are open too long, they just dry
Looking
out.
at the
Or depending on
screen.
the day,
Yeah.
the weather affects dry eyes.
Oh yeah.
But not a dry eye in the house. when it came to our next
Wait,
guest
what was
because
it?
we didn't have one this
Wait,
week.
wait.
Well,
What a second.
well, I'm gonna
Did our
connect it.
guest
I'm gonna connect
make
it.
us cry or something?
No, no, no. We weren't crying. We were kind of happy
Ah,
because
happy
this is
cry.
a really kind of really cool guest that we had on for this episode. David O'Reilly, who is the location scout for many prominent and well known movies that have come out over the last decade or
Decade
so.
or so. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Inception was a really big one that he had worked on. He worked on a Rogue One. He worked on Solo. He worked on The Rise of Skywalker. So I felt like we got ever so close to big time people. He worked with Michael Mann a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a really great interview.
Yeah, really great interview, and of course, we also had him on because he had made a short film. He's also a filmmaker, and he had made a short film called Kubrick by Candlelight, and it's now available. At the time when we did the interview, it wasn't quite available for the public yet, and now I believe it's available on YouTube now, and maybe some other places. We'll have that link in the notes for you guys to go check it out. But yeah, we got a chance to watch the film and loved it. I loved it. It's a love story that it's set behind the scenes of the making of the film Barry Lyndon that was directed by Stanley Kubrick. So it's a fun, retro look back at that time, and also getting that fun kind of film love in there. The
Like
love.
behind the scenes type of thing.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
love letter to Kubrick, but also a love story. It's fun, and I really, I get into it with him. I was like, "Have you ever thought about making this a longer movie?" We talk about that, like, and I think we even give him an idea during the interview, and I think he said if he could steal it, can he steal it? And I said, of course, yeah, steal it. So we might get a credit one day in a movie, but
I thought that would be amazing.
that would be amazing.
Yeah, he can take whatever ideas we've got
Yeah,
cooking.
please.
Um, please do. So yeah, so we're gonna go into that interview now.
Let's do it. This is our interview with location scout and filmmaker David O'Reilly. And with us this week is location scout and filmmaker David O'Reilly. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, just fantastic.
Doing good.
I've been very excited to talk with you because, David's work sends him, of course, all over the world, I'm sure. But not only that, he has directed a short film that I was not aware of. And I blame this on myself a little bit because I'm not a super Kubrick fan. But this kind of makes me want to be more of a Kubrick fan after watching it. And he
Good.
did a film called Kubrick by Candlelight. And it's directed by him, and it's a romantic comedy set around the kind of behind the scenes of the film Barry Lyndon, which is a famous kind of Stanley Kubrick film. But yeah, it's a wonderful film, and we're really glad to have you here to talk about that and all the location scout work that's, like I said, sends you around the world. So there's my intro. And Andrew, hey, how you doing? You're here
I'm
too.
doing good.
Yeah,
I'm doing good. I'm just watching you stumble your way through this.
It happens sometimes when
No, it's fun.
No,
It
it's
actually
part of my
went very
charm,
well.
right?
Yeah, just the way you understated the whole idea of Barry Lyndon, which is considered like Kubrick's masterpiece, and you said
That's
it
the
so
only way I
frankly.
can talk about it because I've never seen it. So
Yeah, that's another thing, and it's just like just a little movie directed by a little director known as Stanley Kubrick.
It's okay. It's fine.
Y-
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite spectrum when it comes to Steven, when it comes to Stanley Kubrick. If some people were to come up to me and be like, "Hey, favorite movie director of all time," Stanley Kubrick would probably be my instant answer. That's how much I loved it. I went through that whole phase where um, you just get into someone's filmography and you get so entrenched in it that you watch everything that's in it. You watch all of the behind the scenes making of stuff, all the documentaries, all this kind of stuff. And of course, there's endless things about Stanley Kubrick. I guess since we're on a Stanley Kubrick kick, we should ask David what kind of drew him. I'm assuming David is a Stanley Kubrick fan.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
would be weird if you weren't.
yeah, I can't stand him. But it's the same. It's interesting, really, isn't it? We all, we all have our favorite filmmakers and directors, and we've all watched movies all the time. But it's strange. It's almost there's almost not. Well, I suppose there is a cult of Kubrick, but it's amazing how much side work is generated, including my own film, I suppose, but by his work. Now, I wonder. Now, that's obviously because the films are amazing. And he changed genres. He didn't, he spent a lot of time, so there was gaps in between. I think it's also because the eras and the eras that he was making films, there wasn't as much access to filmmakers, and also he very much controlled that access too. So I suppose in the gaps of that, people generated their own mythologies and ideas. But ultimately it's because the films are every single one of them is incredibly detailed, and you can kind of smell the passion and the research and the pain in each film, and with a different genre each time. It's yeah, sort of endlessly, you can tap into them endlessly, which is quite rare for any film. And I suppose that's why you ask directors or filmmakers to come back to those guys, to their film favorite directors. He always comes up because there's an element of fantastic, amazing craft work, but also the mystery in between it. It's almost like he's a magician as a director. And that's quite rare now to have anyone in the last 50 years that people do keep coming back to. It's a good 20 years plus since he died, and we're still, there's I think I just saw there's a season in some cinema in Los Angeles. I mean, everywhere around the world. The exhibition's still traveling around the world. I think it's the detail and the majesty of those movies. But so from my experience, I think I got into him quite young, and I think my access point, strangely, was Full Metal Jacket, because I think that's when I was watching videos or beginning to watch videos, and quite young. That was a war movie, so that kind of attracted me. Of course, then you sit down and watch that, and you realize, like 2 hours later, you've been kind of brutalized to the point where you feel like you've been through the Vietnam War. But so that's an interesting point, access point, because I didn't know then. I mean, that came out, I suppose, at 87. So I probably didn't see it in 87, but I remember that's the first film I remember seeing and now realizing it was Stanley Kubrick. But it was coming out at a time when there was a lot of Vietnam films coming out, Platoon and all of that. So probably it was getting lost in amongst that for me. And then, of course, in retrospect, realized that it was this incredible 2-part film in some ways, technically amazing looking, but also brutally brutal, really. So that was my access point, but I don't remember feeling anything about Kubrick at that point, because you're young, very young.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand. And then I think as I went through my teenage years, started getting into movies in a much more erudite, serious way. I suppose then you fall into 2001 and Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange is always that access point for teenagers, because even, late 80s, 90s, it was, it still felt, it hadn't even been, I don't think it had been re-released in media then, or, but it was still sort of, kind of secret goods in some ways, bizarrely, wasn't it? Which was amazing. And then obviously you expand out of that. Now, I didn't look at Barry Lyndon for a long time. I think that's what happens with Barry Lyndon. In amongst all of those amazing movies, people kind of skip it, or they're not fully aware of it in his work. And then when people do, they go, "Oh my God, that's the most amazing film I've ever seen in my life." And that's kind of forgotten. So it's amazing, isn't it? Between 2001, Shining, what's Barry Lyndon? Oh, it's only that incredibly amazing 3-hour movie. Which again, like I said at the beginning, it's kind of rare, isn't it? We don't really have those people that are still generating column inches about their work and the gaps in between and what the subtext and what it all means. I think that's his amazing legacy, which I think few directors, few filmmakers truly have. They may have one or two great movies and that
Mm.
stains them, but he's kind
Yeah,
of lucky. He's lucky every one of them hit, really.
I was just saying, part of the draw with Stanley Kubrick is indeed the fact that he only had a limited amount of films in his career. What was it, about a dozen,
Mhm.
13 theatrical films, and his career spanned over 40 years. Not, most film directors, if they had given a 40-year time frame, would probably make 25, 30 movies. Who knows how many? But he was always very specific, very particular. If you look at the dates between his films, years would go by, and in those years, he would be meticulously prepping
Mhm.
for his next film. And Barry Lyndon is interesting for me because it's kind of like you said, David. It does get somewhat lost in his filmography. By lost, I mean like it's sandwiched in between A Clockwork Orange and The Shining, both films that are both kind of iconic in different ways. A Clockwork
Mhm.
Orange being so bold, being an adaptation of a controversial novel, being a controversial film, even to this day, maybe even more so.
Mhm.
And then you have The Shining, which is seemingly yet again another adaptation of a very famous novel, but also kind of like a staple of the horror genre in and of itself. So in the middle, you've got this epic 3 hour you know, costume period piece
Mhm.
that is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of filmmaking and just everything in and of itself. And for those of you who don't know a lot about Stanley Kubrick, just diving into him is so fascinating because even with Barry Lyndon, as I'm sure David knows, is like this was probably the closest he ever got to making his Napoleon biopic that he wanted. So it's set in in that similar time, but it is a fictitious story, and it's everything. It's satirical. It's biographical. It's political. It's so many different things, um, and yeah, it's such a unique film that's set like in the heart of his filmography. When it came to setting your short film, what made you choose Barry Lyndon and not one of his kind of other projects or behind
Yeah,
the
I
scenes
mean,
things that he had done?
I suppose the genesis of the project was I we wanted to make a big scale, low budget. I mean, everyone does, doesn't it? But big scale, low budget short film, which kind of the idea was that everything about it was um, not luxurious, but we kind of pushed it out the barrel to make it look like it cost $1 million, or that was the kind of general kernel of the first idea of making a short film. And I obviously a huge Kubrick fan, and I was lucky enough to work with some people that worked on Kubrick films, Shining and Barry Lyndon, and I always kept coming back. Obviously, I'm Irish heritage, always coming back to the story I had read, and then mythologized of him filming in Ireland in 1973, and then getting this call from the IRA, and then leaving the next day and never coming back. And that
Oh
had
man.
always stuck in my head, that story. And obviously, as a person who works on film sets, I thought, is that how would that did that really happen, or how could that happen now? And I suppose he was powerful enough and scared enough that it did happen. It's always still a bit contentious about it. Was it real? Was it a real phone call? But I know, and I've met the second AD of The Shining and Barry Lyndon and Michael Stevenson, who's a legend. He says, and he says he was the guy who picked up the phone, and he said it was 100% true. Um, so with that in my head, I started to think, okay, I want to make a big movie. I work behind the scenes. I know behind the scenes. So it came in from different angles, really. Love of a love of Barry Lyndon, a love of that story, and then I thought, how can I make a story about that myth, or that or the reality? So then I kind of came in with my sort of Romeo and Juliet style love story, which then originally was very mirrored in Barry Lyndon. So it was, and it's still a little bit there. And so, yeah, so like 4 points it came in from wanting to make a big film on a small budget, loving Barry Lyndon, loving that myth, and then trying to get it into a 18-minute story. So it came in from loads of different ways, and then I wrote the script. Then we got some funding from a local council in Ireland, where my mum and dad are from, which was kind of coincidence, but I suppose it worked out very well. And then we got the impetus to start, basically, because we got some upfront money to spend. I think I'm still paying for the film now, but so it was lots of different things came together. But obviously, ultimately, it was a love of Barry Lyndon, and also I suppose the theme behind by my film now is really as we've said, Barry Lyndon's like one of the most beautiful films ever shot, and it looks fantastic, and it's it's like a 17th century 18th century painting all the way through. Obviously I know, and you guys will know as well, and most people do know, I suppose, but the behind the camera, whatever film it is, whether it's Star Wars or Barry Lyndon, is absolute chaos, mud, dirt, overflowing toilets, bacon sandwiches, late nights, partying, affairs in hotels, the circus, behind that to get to that beautiful image is always just pure mayhem. You don't give now, I mean, the budgets are much bigger, but what business in the world would give 100 million or 200 million to creative people? No one. But the film industry does. Oh, there you go make that. And 9 times out of 10 the films that I've worked on in the last 20 years have been pure chaos, because that's what it is. It's always, there's not enough time, there's never enough money. You got 200 creative people on the road, and all it comes down to is that box that we're in now, and what's on the other side. In the end, when the film comes out, no one ever remembers what happened behind the camera. So I always think about that with Barry Lyndon when I watch it, and that was the kind of main theme once I started writing was, oh my God, look how beautiful it looks. But I know they filmed in Ireland, and it must have been raining, and there must have been cars slipping all over the place and people falling into cow pats, and but no one ever sees that. And once the film is crystallized on celluloid and that's it, no one ever remembers. So it's obviously it's a knockabout comedy film, but I tried to put some themes within it. And there's a lot of talk about toilets and there's a lot of toilet jokes in my film to bring it down to my level, but that's kind of from an initial concept of a kind of prosaic behind the scenes, which is, it's just all mess and love, and you know what I mean, like it's. And when I started working, then we started making it with the DOP, he tries, because he really wanted to recreate Barry Lyndon, and I said, well, ultimately what we're trying to do is make hot Lyndon, 70s Lyndon. So we're behind the camera, and it was probably quite fun. Everyone was drinking and having a great time. But so all of those are in the melting pot of my 80-minute film, and then obviously trying to make it funny, and then stupidly then trying to stick about 90 to 100 Qubit references in there too. So I didn't make it easy for me or anyone on the crew, but hopefully, and then I suppose then it's not mine anymore, it's out. And
I was gonna say, there are tons of Kubrick references in there, like direct lines from some of his other films. Was that difficult to work that in? Did it feel like you had to do it, or did you just kind of organically for example?
I think it organically it started. Go on, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, because there is one scene where 2 characters are fighting. Someone walks in and says, "There's no fighting in the war room," or something like that. And it's like, that's a direct line from Dr. Strangelove. And it's
that was easy. That was easy.
Is that the easy one?
That saved me writing the script. It was like, I think, funny enough, that may be the one that I had right from the beginning, because I knew there had to be a kind of love story and a love rival, and then all good films have a fight in them, and then I So I think somehow I don't think I worked back from that gag, which was, gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the wardrobe room. I mean, it was not a bad gag, but I think I didn't work back from it. But it sort of fit. That one fit very nicely. And then there's tiny ones that you'll never see. And last year, a guy emailed me and he said, "Oh, I really want to watch your film." And it's like, okay, so I sent him the link, and he came back with something like 130 references. So I don't know where he got the extra 40 or 50, but it's quite a good list. But I know there's certainly like 90-ish, but he found 130. But some of them are like visual effects. So there's an old car in it, and our visual effects guy, who was a great Kubrick fan, put a little couple of numbers and letters references on the registration plate. So, and there's obviously lines which are, and some reviews of it are like, it's a bit too much, but I didn't think it was. I thought it was fun.
To be honest, the thing that works for this film is because that really well is because it is set understanding that Kubrick's a real person. It's not like set in some fictional time where a fictional place where Kubrick's not a thing. You're literally working on a Kubrick film, so making them references it makes sense because it's all Kubrick's on everybody's mind. They're working on Kubrick, so them making reference to Kubrick films is like kind of works. It doesn't seem weird that they're making references even if they're not doing it on purpose. Like it's or that the cameras what you're doing as a visually is making reference or anything like that. It really just it just feels like a love fest. It feels like a love fest for this filmmaker, and that's what you want, especially when it's a short film. It's under a half an hour. Why not bolster it out with as much love for Kubrick as possible?
Right. And what was it always intended to be 18 minutes, or did you have like longer cuts that you had worked on and had to work it down?
It was pretty lean, to be fair. And we shot for about 4 days in Ireland. Then we shut down for lack of money, and then came back. And we knew then, because as you all know, there's a kind of montage in the middle, which is the other 80 minutes of my film if it was a feature. And then we didn't have enough because that really takes time out of you. That doing a montage, if you've got 90 minutes of footage, is quite easy, but if you're creating a montage, I realized very quickly we didn't have enough. So then we did a couple of extra days in Shepperton Studios, of all places, like 4 months later. So roughly 4 or 5 days shoot. But yeah, and then it was quite lean. The first edit with Ben Leach, who was our editor, it wasn't far off it, to be honest. And ultimately now, in retrospect, I should have made it shorter because, half the festivals that you find out why you've been rejected, if you can, usually say, "Oh, it's too long," and it's not because it's too long for the film, because it's the length it needs to be. It's too long for them because they like to program 6 shorts
15.
an hour.
It's like 15 minutes, isn't it? Usually they like
So
15 minutes.
I knew I was over the odds, and and we had a kind of nice credits, and there's a couple of references in the credits, but I felt like people had to be credited properly, Kickstarter people and people, so I wasn't going to just cut it short for that sake. But obviously everything could always be shorter. But to answer your question, Andrew, it was roughly always came in about there, really, because we were quite lean, and we had to, I storyboarded it all. We shot in the middle of December in Ireland, so it was kind of the problems that they would have experienced. We were like shooting with Irish people dressed as English soldiers, rain, short days, fog, like we were kind of like a microcosm of my own film story about their film. It was kind of a foreign crew shooting in Ireland, facing exactly the same issues, if you know what I mean. So it was really tough. So we literally, if I could, I certainly didn't do Kubrick levels of takes. We didn't have the time.
You didn't want to get too, you didn't want to be too, you didn't want to
Yeah.
turn into Kubrick just to make this movie. That would be weird.
That's the
no,
thing.
no 125 takes. They must have loved you.
And honestly, I've been on lots of film sets with lots of directors. I can see how it happens, because it's like I was saying, all this build up to that one moment where you switch the camera on and 2 actors or 500 actors have to work. It's quite a lot of pressure on everyone behind the camera, everyone in front of the camera. So I can see how you can go to 100 takes if you can. I can see how you can do it, because if it's not right, it's going to be not right forever. So
Yeah. It's
so
a it's a
I
feeling.
can I get
It's a feeling. It's a feeling you have. Like when you're, if it doesn't feel right, then
Mhm.
And I think that's what I know about Kubrick. I think he's definitely a perfectionist, and he, I think for him he had to feel right in the moment to feel like he got it. Like I think that's it. Most directors, like you want to feel like that it's almost like you're watching the movie already, and that you got it right there in that moment. And if you didn't get that feeling, then well, let's do it again. Like
Right. Well,
yeah,
I mean, it is advantageous now that you're shooting on digital versus
film,
film.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know
yeah,
what I mean? Doing 100 takes on film is a lot different than doing 100 takes on digital, in
yeah.
definitely.
terms of monetary reasons. Um, and yeah, it's a fantastic like love letter to Stanley Kubrick, to his work. Um,
I do want
I
to
just
say
want
I do. I'm
yeah,
sorry, Andrew.
say it.
I do want, before I forget it. I do want to say that I fantasize how I do with a lot of films that I really like. And in this case, um, I do fantasize going along with it, there being more to it. Like Andrew was asking. Um, I was telling him, I was pitching to Andrew what I think if the movie was longer, what it would be like. And I said, what would be great is if the movie was longer, it could be like a couple other Kubrick films to extend the love story. Like they only meet on the sets of other Kubrick films, and then by the
Okay.
end, um,
Hang on,
like
I'll
You
write
got
that down.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Take it. I take it. It's a
yeah.
good idea.
Please,
But
please.
it's fascinating
Yeah,
that
like they're
kind
on
of
the
like
set of The Shining together, and then whatever the movies are around it. Like it would be interesting if the love story extended to them other sets, and some of the stories behind them other films, and then at the end you kind of maybe like somewhat of a cliffhanger or like subtle way of knowing where the relationship goes. But with that, on top of that, the casting, really good chemistry. Your two lead actors,
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
can get their name right here. Dara O'Toole and uh, Amy Hughes,
that's right. Yeah,
both fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and Dara is from Tullamore, so that's where my parents are from, and that's where we shot 99% of the film. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I'm an up-and-coming actor in the area and been on television in Ireland, so he was straight in. And then Amy, I had seen in a strangely similar kind of story. There was a thing on the BBC about the making of a sitcom in the 70s called Dad's Army. So it probably means very little to you. But it was a behind the scenes of a making of a sitcom. So it was set in the 70s, and she played a kind of secretary in it. And I saw her and I thought, it was the right period. It was just something, and it was a comedy. So I kind of made a note, as if you're lucky enough to do, you go, okay, and I'll, if I've got something coming, I'll be good to see if she's around. Amazingly, she lives in Ireland, so she was the perfect scenario. But yeah, they're great chemistry. And yeah, to answer your question, and I don't, I've sort of have and am making a bigger Kubrick, writing a bigger Kubrick by Candlelight. I've left it
Oh wow.
mostly on Barry Lyndon, like script wise. But I actually totally agree. I think that would be a fantastic idea, Steve.
yeah, I
Hey, take please. If you
Go
if you really like it, take it,
take
please.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
take it, please.
because obviously the montage in my film in some ways is kind of saying, hey, if you give me $100,000, I'll fill that gap in and make it 90 minutes. That was kind of, some that in, what I mean, like 6 months passed within that kind of 2 minutes, and it was kind of suggesting that there was a bigger story to tell, and I'm sort of struggling with it, and I'm getting there. Um but yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, what I think it does is it also adds, I think with a lot of great love stories, you know, when there's some time between that love that when they're together, that kind of helps reinforce the love bond. when they don't see each other for a while, kind of makes me think about the Before trilogy, where they don't see each other, between the first and the second film for many years. And then they finally meet again in the second film. And that love is still obviously there. That chemistry is still there.
Right.
And
But
so
it's
like,
different.
yeah,
If you only met on the set of a Kubrick film, it would be fairly big gaps, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna
that's
say,
the other thing.
yeah. That's the other problem is like, yeah.
Steve and I
But
were talking, between Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut is a 12-year is
yeah,
a 12-year gap between the movies coming out. Less time between the making ofs, but it actually probably ends up being the same if you end up kind of doing the math on that. But it's like where would the characters be 10, 12 years later? It's fascinating thought process.
Well, that may shift the focus of my feature film script.
oh Jesus,
In a
look
good
what
way.
we
Right, I'll
did.
do it.
Don't
Oh,
worry,
man.
I'll give you some residuals on the back of it.
Oh no!
If
I just
there
want
are
the
A
movie
shout
to
out,
be.
a
I
shout
just
out in the
want
credits.
just to shout out in the credits and just get the movie made, man. Because
Yeah, it's
I'll
very
I'll
true.
be really excited to see that and
And I
hopefully
suppose,
get the same cast back.
yeah,
That cast is
older,
amazing.
yeah. But isn't
And
it
and look,
interesting? Kind of the thing that we've been talking about is that we love the fact that he did so much research and he took so long. But isn't it in some ways slightly sad that he did? Because if you think about that gap between Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut, it's like we know now from all of the books and documentaries, he had so many different shows on the go. It's like, oh my God, couldn't he have just maybe done some more that we couldn't? You know what I mean? Like it's sort of greedy
Yeah,
of the
very
consumer
much
to
so.
go, oh my God, he died too young and really didn't. He left us an amazing legacy. Wouldn't it be amazing if he'd left us just one more thing? Or do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I suppose it's the difference between someone like um, and a kind of a friend of his at the time, but Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott has consistently made his films every few years. Now he seems to be on this kind of frenzy to make films every 5 minutes.
every couple
By the look
days. Yeah,
every couple of
Every
days. And I suppose
Oftentimes,
maybe that's a kind of end of not life, but end of career kind of impetus, I suppose. And I've been lucky to work with Michael Mann 3 times. He takes very big gaps in between. Like there's a lot of research and a lot of time, and also the bit that isn't very romantic. There's just hustling for the money to make these shows. Like even those big guys are all hustling for money, and certainly now, it feels like it's boom time, but it's still very hard to get a film made. If it's an original idea and it's outside of the box or outside of a brand, it's almost virtually impossible at some points to get money to make those. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like I was reading about After Sun, which I haven't seen, but the director Charlotte Wells was talking about, I don't think she who's financing those films. When I think the comment is once they're made and they start getting success, and of course they don't cost very much, so they make quite a bit of money, and then they get some Oscar nominations, everyone loves them and wants to talk about them, and producer going, oh, I love After Sun. But when it was being hawked around Soho or London or even Hollywood, probably no one wanted to know. So but they always want that product, but they're not willing to stump up the small amount of capital to get them made, and that's sad because I know we're just generally in a branded IP world. I mean, look behind me. I live in a branded IP world, and I work, I work in that world. But it's sad then that if Chris Nolan is our generation's Kubrick, because that could be a whole other show, then he's
I don't
kind of
disagree.
safe. He's kind of safe in the sense, they're letting him make the films that he wants to make. They also make good money, so that's why it works for him. He takes a long time in between each one, not as long as Kubrick. They're equally as researched and kind of complex, but they make a lot of money. And some of like Barry Lyndon didn't do particularly well at the box office, and so I suspect in between all of the research and thinking about movies is also that horrible hustling for money. So I'm sure Kubrick had to hustle for money, all the time. What do you want to make next? Clockwork Orange. I mean, now people, it just wouldn't happen, would it? So I suspect it's probably in one of the many books behind me, but everyone has to hustle. No one wants to make anything. Everyone wants to make everything, but they
And
don't.
some people are not good at that. Like Kubrick. I don't know. I'm not an expert, so I don't really know. But he comes off as somebody that maybe would be a little awkward to try to do something like that. That they're really very much into being an artist, and to have to deal with the business side of
Mm.
filmmaking was probably difficult for him, which made
I'm
it
not,
difficult for him to
maybe I'm
get
not
movies made.
sure. It's
Yeah,
interesting. Most of the directors now, Christopher Nolan is pretty savvy business wise.
yeah.
Mm.
Michael is definitely, like they're all
Of course,
producers.
Chris Nolan also works with his wife too, so that's a good
Yeah,
partnership.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
yeah.
and the
I think
landscape
you
is
have
much different now.
I think
Yeah.
you have to be almost, part of
Yeah,
you got, which is tough because there's a lot going on. I mean, my it's only a tiny film, but my regret about when I was making it was me and the producer Vinny were just constantly hustling to get gear and like the small stuff. Like for a short film, it's
yeah.
like who's doing the food and like what um, did that take away from the quality time I could spend thinking about the movie and directing it? Probably, but then that's kind of just another microcosm of being a bigger director where you have to make 5,000 decisions. But a director generally of that status then is not worried about the money. It's not their money, but money is always a big part of movies, whether you're
Yeah.
$300 million or 20 grand. Unfortunately it's the show business, isn't it? It's like and then once it's finished, it's even worse. It's like getting it on your
Yeah,
shelf
that's a whole other
behind
thing.
you, like is the big battle.
That's a whole other thing. I mean, yeah, the financial landscape of movie making is so separate from the actual filmmaking itself that it's so much, it's like a different world. I mean, often that's kind of, for people listening, that's kind of why you see so many film festivals around. Sundance, South by Southwest, Telluride. A lot of those things are that's after the fact financing where they're trying to get distribution, which is a whole other thing. And that's more in the indie film realm and stuff like that. But even beforehand getting financing for movies, that's why you see so many um company logos or names before a movie even starts in the opening credits. All of those companies have thrown in some type of backing in some type of way. So for those of you who kind of see these random companies you've never heard of, they're just kind of random production companies that finance your movies. For me, I'll never forget this. It was years ago when Martin Scorsese's Silence was coming out, and I heard that he had been trying to get that movie made for decades and could never get the funding for it. And I'm like, if Martin Scorsese can't get funding for a passion project, most people probably can't get funding for a
Yeah,
passion
yeah.
project. Even someone like Spielberg probably has to pitch and ask for funding and stuff. Even with the deep l- years upon years, decades upon decades ties he has to studios, um, the landscape is always changing when it comes to the way movies are made, the way the finances work. Even now, I would even say living in the post, not even post, even living in current, pandemic times, COVID times, changed fundamentally a lot about the movie business from
Mm.
filmmaking all the way up to physical media and everything in between. So it's fascinating to see kind of how all of that works. It's so much more detailed and takes so much longer than I think people realize. Usually movies take years in between. Um, when I often hear that some directors, when they're in post on one picture, they're starting plans already for the next picture that they're going to be working on. And it's just a never ending thing if you want to get your projects off the ground. Um,
And also, they, and I suppose everyone should. Like they've got lots of fingers in different pies, so they've got projects going at any one time because one of them might get attached to a director that then or to an actor that then becomes hot, and then there's sort of juice to go. But it's a complete hustle all of the time. Yeah, and my
It's
short film
yeah.
was an example. I had to hustle really hard, get it into film festivals. still hustling even today. You know, it's what I learned. You know, and I've been in the film industry a long time, but actually, when we made the short film, and then we started going through editing and finding a narrator and all of that business, and then trying to get it into festivals, and we got into a distribution deal, which ultimately was a mistake. Like, it was amazing that we felt like we knew the industry, and then of course making a film, we realized we knew nothing. We were like, it's
Yeah.
complete. You get shafted every corner you turn around. You get sort of knocked over or conned or gatekeeped by people that, you know, like I said, oh, it's 18 minutes. I don't like it. There's no kind of review basis to it. It's very, very basically, and so that's everyone working, you know, at every level. It's quite a tough industry to be creative, you know,
Yeah.
solely creative, because it is a business. It's about putting, you know, now, as you say, Andrew, the business has changed. It used to be about getting people in the cinema and then putting DVDs and Blu-rays on your shelves behind you. Now it's getting you to subscribe to 5 different channels, uh,
Yeah.
and keep that momentum going. Which I read about Disney making big cuts yesterday, and I read one of the lines was, people are beginning to pick and choose. So you can, I'll take Disney Plus, then I'll cancel it. I'll come back in 2 months' time and watch Mandalorian season 3, and then cancel it again. And so, you know, the consumer is now king, because they're like, you know, I don't have to sign up to Apple TV for life. I can take it for a month, watch all of the episodes of Severance that I need, and then go off, and, you know, and I think that's really cool. But it's a very short period of time the streamers have gone, oh right, it's not, you know, it's not a license to print money at all.
Yeah, it's
And
not
what I've
feasible.
noticed physically, in filmmaking terms, is that we had this real boom of streamers where everyone was going, Netflix are making 15 different shows in Shepperton, which is down the corners from me, and, you know, like, they're buying this studio, someone's opening another studio. This is all in the space of maybe 3 years, and
Yeah,
now, already in 2023, it's like it's crashing.
it's
So
amazing how the bubble blew up so quick, and now it's imploding.
yeah,
Whereas,
absolutely.
yeah, I would say between the last 3 to 5 years, everyone seemingly jumped on the streaming bandwagon. All the different companies had to launch their platforms because they had to keep up with everybody else. They had to make content, constant content. And then it kind of hit a wall and they realized we can't keep up with this because
Mhm.
we're, yeah, every single year we're hemorrhaging money. So what happens now? Now you saw all the cuts with Warner Brothers restructuring once again. You see Disney having to lay off people.
Mhm.
You see all those things kind of happening, and it's like, and then you see also the prices rise when it comes to subscription money and, you know, services and whatnot. So it's
Exactly.
like now the consumer's gonna be like, maybe I don't want to pay $20 a month or whatever the case
Exactly.
may be,
Yeah, yeah.
or I want this versus that, and they start choosing. So it's very delicate time, I think, now for streaming. I don't see it going anywhere because I
Mm,
think we've opened Pandora's box to the
mm,
future. Now it's all about trying to figure out how to make it work for
mm,
everyone without having it all fall apart. Um, but what doesn't change is, I guess, the making of the stuff that people have to make stuff. And I guess I kind of wanted to pivot back to you, David, to kind of how you got into what you kind of, well, or at least what your IMDb says you do most of, which is location managing, location scouting, stuff like that. How did you end up getting into that part of the industry?
well, I did English literature at university, which I now realise, or they used to tell you afterwards, it's the degree that prepares you for everything and prepares you for nothing. So anyway, so I did that, and that was great fun. Um, and funny enough, it's interesting because I'm on a podcast. Is the most work I did at university was I used to have a radio show. So this is like mid 90s, mid to late 90s. Um, a comedy radio show where I used to do the news. Of course, now if I was at university, I'd surely be doing a podcast. But anyway, it was just a side. I remember I spent almost, so English literature degrees, you have like 2 hours a week work, you know, physical meeting people, and then the rest you're meant to be reading and writing. Obviously, I spent 3 years having a fantastic time, and most of the time writing a comedy show on the radio. But anyway, that aside, so I left university, and then I stumbled into the film industry via a film commission. So the guys that do permits and advertising, and so I got a job in the London Film Commission, and then I worked in their location library, which was all still physical media. So it was pictures on paper and boards, and it was a massive library full of these huge folders of castles and streets, and quite a physical gem, which I believe may have just gone. I mean, I know it's all digital now. I don't know if the physical things have actually just been dumped, but this library contained pictures from 70s, 80s into 90s London, and now I think it's an incredible visual dictionary of London. So I spent 2 years in that place helping people coming in, asking for stuff, and then and I'm from London, so I knew London, or I thought I did. And then I decided to leave and go out on my own. And then my first kind of real big job, I suppose, was Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie, where I sort of came in and did lots of sticking of pictures, and then did a tiny bit of scouting and looking after something, and then kind of gradually went from there. And most, like film industry in the US and the UK, then you're kind of only as good as your last job, and then if you're on that job, the person goes on to the next job and they recommend you, or you go with them, and then gradually you build up. So I've been lucky that I've managed to do big films, which means they do exciting stuff. And big films now, or certainly in the last 10 years with Star Wars and stuff like that, means they generally send me around the world, which is quite good. And I suppose I did my time in London, so I knew, like I did all of the council estates and back alleys and pubs and bars and all of that kind of stuff, and Tower Bridge, and whatever anyone needed. And then gradually the sandbox gets too small, and by luck and by bad luck at the same time, I had my first child, Millie. And then 3 months later, I got a job with Michael Mann in Malaysia and Hong Kong and Jakarta for 2 weeks. And I thought, fantastic, 2 weeks with Michael Mann, this is going to be amazing. And I came back 22 weeks later. So and unfortunately, fortunately, that was the beginning of the sort of second half of my scouting career, because then I started going abroad a lot. Which I wished I'd been going abroad a lot when I was sort of young, free, and single.
Yeah.
When you had all the time in the world.
Anyway, there you go. That's how it worked. And so, gradually, and there's obviously a lot of films in between, but it's basically, grafting hard and getting out on the road, whether it's in the UK, and then if you're lucky, getting out on the road with someone in Mexico or Laos or something crazy like that, which is then just makes it kind of one of the best jobs in the world. I don't know, but like it often gets called that, but it, obviously behind it is lots of work and being away and all of that. But to get paid to explore jungles and tropical islands and stuff like that, and meet people, which is that's the great buzz, I think, of traveling, is sort of, and I'm traveling in a way that I would never do normally, because I turn up and I start working from day one, and it's usually with one other person. So that person, if you're lucky, and then most of the times I've been really lucky, you get on really well with, because essentially they're you in another country, and then you just go off on adventures, and you spend 24 hours a day with those people and meet their families, and so I get a rare glimpse of cultures and communities that I often think back when I left university. I didn't have a gap year. I don't know what I didn't go traveling because I didn't have enough money, and I feel like my payback is my job.
Yeah.
I'm on an
The universe
extended
corrected itself.
year,
So when it comes to location scouting, I mean, what's some of the minutia of what you have to do? Do you have to be a little bit educated in photography? Do you have to do some of that kind of stuff? What's the kind of day-to-day of that?
The day-to-day is different on different films, I suppose. Essentially, you would get a call, and it would be Star Wars or one of Michael's films or something like that, you're usually quite early on, so that's kind of a privilege, because sometimes there's only you and the production designer, or maybe not even a production designer and the director, with Star Wars sometimes only the finished sliver of a script and some ideas, and then you start to build a package. You obviously spend some time with the director if you can, or the production designer, and start to build some ideas about, and some of it you pick it off. So it's like, if it's a London thing, it's, oh yeah, then X walks into a pub, and then you try and give them options, and then it's always, you're always looking for the best looking thing, but sometime down the line it becomes the most logistically or financially viable. So somewhere in between is usually the answer, because sometimes, the pub interior has to be on the same day as a car chase exterior, which is over in East London. So it's a sort of very complex patching together of stuff. Star Wars, generally, which I did about 6 years in general, is different in the sense I'm usually on really early, and then you start contributing to the kind of ideas of it all, which is, where are we going to go? What's new? And that's rare. You can find anything new in the world that hasn't been traveled to or seen, and trying to figure out new planets, and then, to those countries, are they even doable in terms of the crew and financials? And so essentially you're on early, you work with the art department. So back in the old days, I think it probably would have been part of the art department. I feel like I am part of the art department, but the art department, I think you're part of production. So there's always that
Yeah.
art versus commerce even there, but essentially you're there to support the production designer's vision and give him or her options to give to the director. And then you kind of, and again, it's the triangle. There's lots at the bottom, and then we pick away. This is no good, it doesn't work for the story. This is no good, it's too expensive. This is no good, it's in the middle of nowhere. And then you start to, and then it's schedule based and actor based, and then you kind of, it's sort of patchwork your way towards a result. But and then the bigger movies are simpler and more difficult. We're looking for big things, so it's like, we need a jungle, so then we have to go and find a jungle, but that jungle then has to be made to work, and access, and all of the sort of the behind the scenes stuff then has to be thought about. But I'm lucky that most of that half bit at the beginning is kind of exploring and taking photos. So as you were saying about photography, I mean, I think I take okay photos. I wouldn't say I'm an amazing photographer. What I think I do know is, I think I do know now, because I'm a filmmaker, I suppose, as well, and I love movies. I know where the camera should be, I suppose. So, and maybe
Yeah.
that's half the work. So when people ask me about getting into it, and they hope, do they have to be an amazing photographer? Not really. I think you just need to know more about story and selling also, because essentially I'll go somewhere and I'll think it's perfect for the movie. And then sometimes you have to convince the production designer and the director that is the right place, because they can't see it, and until you get there with them. And so there's a lot of packaging, which, physical days used to be sticking photos on blackboards and folders and all of that kind of thing. Then at some point in my career it became digital, like all of our lives, I suppose. So it's a bit easier now. It's even easier. I send, you can take a picture on your iPhone now that you could never take on a physical camera, and make it look amazing, and then email it or WhatsApp it to the production designer and say, what do you think? So it's kind of, even my job has slightly changed, and it can be a lot quicker. You can't disappear now for 6 weeks and ring back once a week and say, I think I found it, I need another month. Now they can say,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they can say, send us over your stuff, so
Yeah.
the volume of stuff and places is increased, because your access to it audio visually is a lot quicker. But yeah, so
Do you
essentially,
no, I was gonna say, when it comes to that vision that you're trying to send to maybe the director, do you keep their, like, what you know about them as filmmakers in mind when you're trying to visually show them something that you think would be good for their film, like
Yeah,
what their
definitely.
kind
I
of
mean,
style. Yeah.
yeah, and and working with Michael is, he's a lover of locations, he's a lover of real places and what they mean to the characters. He has a certain look, so you kind of, you
Yeah.
don't overdo it because then you might annoy them, but you know what they like. Obviously,
Yeah.
and that's the first thing you do. You hear you got a job coming, you read the script, but then you start dive deeping into their work, the director's work and the production designer's work, and then so that's the great thing is you sort of you go off in a different direction each year, and you kind of try to see what they like, what turns them on visually or even in a photograph. And sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes ultimately,
Yeah.
you go, I think this is the most amazing place, and and Miss Peregrine, which I did with Tim Burton. I found the house, and it was a really long search, but when I saw it, it did feel like one of those stories that you would tell about location scouting. We turned the corner, and there it was, and I said, well, this is it.
Yeah.
And then he said the same when we went to see him, and he was like, this is it, isn't it? And so that's rare, because sometimes there's stuff in between that gets in the way. And but yeah, generally you have to kind of be you have to be the director whilst you're out.
Mm.
What and
Well, I was
where
gonna
you.
say it's a very unique thing, and it got to be a thing that's very rewarding for you, because in a way you're things like that in films are more important than I think a lot of viewers give credit to.
Mm. It
That
it
some
it
places
seems
can be
simple,
characters in themselves,
right?
and when you pick the right location and the right building, or the right just interior, it can really become its own character and its own thing that sticks in your mind
Yeah,
later
it's
on.
kind of
So
essential if we're thinking
yeah.
about kind of the building blocks of constructing a film.
Mhm.
Since it's literally a visual medium, you kind of have to get the visuals right at every single level in
Yeah.
order for it to all come together.
Definitely,
Um,
yeah. It's
yeah,
and
and for,
that's what's yeah, it's a fascinating industry. It's all about the visual, as we said about Barry Lyndon. Is that it doesn't matter what goes on behind it. It's that the box has to look spectacular. Um,
it does.
and that's yeah,
I wanted to
that's
ask,
go on.
um, I'm assuming you come on board a project or a production really early on. Has there been moments where, you've been sent off to look for some type of place or building or whatever, and then something changes to where, like, now it's the location of the setting of the movie has changed, or the scenes have changed, and you have to kind of start from scratch again?
Oh,
Has that often
al-
happened?
always, yeah, always. Because certainly Star Wars, and as a strong example on Rogue One, um, was that it, you're on so early on some films that they're even writing the script, and changes in the script then have knock on, certainly in those kind of films, to planets that they're visiting, and you can't go from one to another that has the same look. And so we spent a long time on Rogue One, and I was on very early, looking for jungles for a certain sequence. And I spent a month in Mexico, spent a month in Thailand, Vietnam, had a fantastic time. And then we started focusing on Thailand. And that gave us the jungle, gave us another location, which was the beach, which was in the end of the movie, Scariff in the end of the movie. And then out of nowhere, script changes meant that sequence, which was Jeddah, had to become desert, because what was going to come before it then was kind of green, and so it was quite a basic visual jigsaw, in the sense we couldn't be in the jungle because we were going to be in green before, and we needed to have you need to know, like all films, and certainly with a location, and Star Wars in particular, you need to know, the audience needs to feel comfortable straight away where you are, you know so you kind of,
Yeah.
you're placed, and then you spend 20 minutes there, but you know that they've moved somewhere, so that was but that happens all the time. The script changes, and you swerve, and honestly, there's hundreds of locations I've found that I've gone, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it never gets seen on, because it doesn't fit, or, like many different reasons.
Yeah.
And then you just, so you can't be precious. They just go away, and then they get logged, and then you logged in your head and logged on the computer. And then hopefully, if there's a sequel or another film, you can kind of spring it out of the bag at that particular point. But yeah, a lot of places get digested and left, and we move on to the next place. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's brutal. So you are proud when you see it up on the screen, but you also sit there remembering all the work you did that got trashed.
Yeah, I was gonna say all the stuff that was left behind.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I know this will probably be really difficult because it seems like you've been on a lot of adventures at different places. But can you think of any really interesting situations or stories, maybe with some of the places you visited, or maybe some of the filmmakers or actors you've maybe encountered that would be something you can tell us?
Well, there's probably lots of stuff I can't say, but
Yeah,
I
there's
know
probably more
that's what I'm
deals than
saying. I
that.
know
Yeah.
there's probably a lot you
that's
can't
why I
Probably
say.
made
more.
Kubrick by Candlelight. You can see what goes on, but look, I suppose ultimately, I think I said it earlier. What my fascination is that I get sort of thrown into places, sometimes at quite short notice, and then have to kind of settle in and try and be, the director and the producer and the production designer wrapped up in one for a long time before anyone really turns up. And I think that's kind of the privilege, is the kind of the the secret agent jumping out of a plane into the jungle job that I have. Obviously it's much more slower than that, but that's but some of the places that I've loved, that when we worked in the Maldives on Rogue One, that seemed like a dream now. And kind of, it's the location that me and my colleagues still talk about, as you'd imagine. But it was quite ridiculous. Like, we shouldn't have been there. We shouldn't have been filming in the Maldives with a crew of 10, but we brought 300 people and
Oof.
stormtroopers and helicopters. And that was that, as an example, is why some, like the Star Wars films, are exciting, because they have enough money and time just to kind of push, or in fact they have to push the envelope slightly, because everyone knows, social media and social mobility means that everyone knows what's in the world. There's not many secret places, you know what I mean? So everyone has kind
Yeah.
of access to everywhere. So making like a Bond film or a Star Wars film, it's quite tricky now to kind of dazzle people with a place. But I think Maldives is one of those places that does dazzle, and I think it worked really well. But it was an incredibly difficult, bizarre, amazing, beautiful place to work. But it started exactly how most films do: keep it small. We'll get in. We'll just do some visual effects stuff and just keep it, nimble, and let's get in there. And then, by the time we were shooting, it was 250, 300 people, 40 boats, helicopter
Jeez.
shipped over in a
Mm.
container, stormtroopers flying all over the place. So it was just crazy. But a kind of an achievement, because no film of that scale has filmed in that area since, and probably won't, because it's just not, it's not viable. But
Yeah.
it made a great impact visually, but also it made a great impact in their kind of selling of the movie, and kind of saying that we're pushing the envelope of going to real places. And it's ironic then, a few years later, that we're trying to stick all of the Star Wars stuff on volumes and LED 360 screens. But that's kind of that's kind of tipped over the top too, in a strange way. That's kind of we're moving out of that already. It's amazing how quickly things are moving because of COVID. I
It,
think everything just changes so quickly.
it is very fascinating how that works. Like trends in filmmaking and trends in all parts of movies, of the movie world, cinema, come and go very quickly. They come and go very, very quickly. When it comes to special effects, when it comes to, like you just said, the whole volume thing with Star Wars, it was literally the big new revelation when it came to The Mandalorian coming out a few years ago, and then y- then you then they make something that doesn't have anything to do with that, and you see the stark difference, and now people are picking favorites. Which side are you on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Specifically Andor, which is a continuation of
Yeah,
Rogue One,
yeah,
giving that aesthetic to that world,
definitely. Yeah, and I
trying
think
to
it
keep that consistency.
changed really quickly, didn't it? And I think when COVID started, and I was in the middle of the Batman at the time, so we'd already done about a month's filming on Batman, and then we were going to Liverpool, and then we got closed down for that was probably in March, I think, wasn't it, where everyone was sort of locking down. Then we came back to carry on filming in September, so we had a big gap in between, and in that gap, there were certain points we weren't working at all, like everyone was locked down, and we were beginning to see the rise of the volume, and then location people were starting to think, uh-oh, this is the end of us. They don't need to go anywhere ever again. And then we started thinking, hey, how can we get in on the volume? And so there was the whole world was going crazy then, wasn't it? But even in our small little exclusive entitled world, we were like, how can we get in on this? And then 2 years later, as you say, it's kind of gone, oh well, that was cool, and it works for very specific kinds of things, but it doesn't. You can't make a whole movie in it. I mean, I think people will, and I think that'll be an interesting thing. And I thought about it myself. I saw a short film that was shot entirely on a makeshift volume. It was actually pretty good fun, but it made a feature of the fact that it was using that backdrop. So that's defeat the object of the volume to a certain extent. But until a low budget feature comes out that's entirely shot on the volume, then it remains a kind of exclusive, expensive world to live in. But as I say, Rogue One was Greg Fraser, and we didn't have a volume, but we used LED screens for stuff. Greg Fraser then kind of was the kind of creator of the Mandalorian volume extravaganza, and even now over a couple of films, including Batman, which he did, we didn't use the volume. We used it a couple of times for sunset stuff, which is what it's perfect for, because you can control that light, which DOPs want, but it can only get twice a day for a couple of minutes. But already it's sort of dropped off, so it's amazing. I think it's all to do with, even like we're going back to streamers and volume and all of that, it's all happened so quickly in the space of 3 or 4 years, and maybe even less than that. And I think it's all COVID has kind of changed. Pandemic has changed the whole how we're consuming products, and and I think you guys will know way more than me. I think it may have even made people more keen to get back into physical media. I think somehow.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of
Well,
upended everything, isn't it?
yeah, I was gonna say, when we've talked to different labels, that's what they've kind of told us, is that they actually had definitely a boom in people wanting to buy more stuff. And so for us, that's fantastic. And I hate that it comes at the expense of a lot of pain in the world, but I'm glad to see that physical media is a thing, and we should come to that with, that's what we do on our show. Is where is your life at when it comes to I see you have a lot of physical things behind you,
Physical books.
so yeah, books and things. But is physical media film something that you are also
Well,
interested in?
it's interesting. I mean, I obviously grew up in video age, and my earliest, it's interesting, and this is very specific to the UK, and maybe only specific to where I lived. My first experience of physical media, and it's even hard to explain what this was, but sort of, let's say mid-80s maybe, a guy would come around to your house. This is true. He would not come around your house, and he would have a suitcase full of videos, right? And you sit with your parents, and so that was the video shop. I don't know if I don't know. Maybe it was just specific to our family. And in perfectly honest with you, I think most of them were pirates and stuff. But it was this suitcase full of videos, and you obviously pay that guy whatever it was, not much, and you were renting from a guy with a suitcase. And honestly, that's my first memory of physical media, which is not a bad one because it's pretty weird. Then
that is a weird first encounter with physical media. As a door-to-door film salesman.
I can remember even what I can remember, and this was really too young, I suppose. I remember watching Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence with David Bowie, and that was one of the videos that my dad rented from the video guy. I can't even know if he had a name. I'll have to ask my parents, but
Craig. It's Craig. Yeah.
and he's now probably the head of Amazon, hopefully. But maybe that's who it was. But so that was my first experience, and you kind of picked, and it was a mobile video shop.
Yeah.
But then, and I'm sure like you, was obsessed by VHS, and I had hundreds and hundreds of movies. And then at a certain point, this is be a sad story for physical media podcast.
Oh no.
You have to let them go, don't you? And and to be fair, as you can probably tell, I don't like letting stuff go. So I let them go, and I can't remember how I did it. I think I did, and this may be specific, but I think a lot of people do this. Is I had the videos, and then I thought I got to get rid of them because I don't even have a VHS anymore, and it's sad, and so then I think I got rid of them, but I kept all of the inlay cards, and I may still have that. And then a friend of mine, Mark, who did exactly the same. He got rid of the videos, kept the cards, and then and I think maybe they've gone, and then obviously DVDs, and I was trying to think about it this morning, as the first DVD I think I ever had was The Matrix, which I think maybe because, and I think it marketed it itself at a certain point. Maybe that's quite late. I don't know, but that's probably late 90s, isn't it? I suppose. But but as a time, I suppose, as a film, that was kind of a good introduction to the format, wasn't it? Because it was like visually stunning, and here was this visually stunning format. So then I went crazy on DVDs, and I can tell you, and I can't move the camera, they're all still in my living room.
Oh man.
And not as neat as either of your. And then obviously into Blu-rays, and then tragically, as I'm sure you discuss on your podcast a lot, it kind of stops. I remember going into HMV, which is a UK shop, which kind of disappeared. I mean, it's still around, and it'd be like, oh my god, right, 5 DVDs for £20, $20, and I'd be like, every week, grab them, let's go. And you'd be just accumulating fantastic levels of DVDs. And what I miss about them, and I still have most of them, is all of the extras, which for me then as a filmmaker growing up was like the access to all of the behind the scenes, the commentaries. I think that's what we've really lost from all of what we have now, is you can get those, but you have to kind of, either have to pay for them, or you can't keep them, and it's very impermanent, and so for a lot of filmmakers, I imagine that's a loss. You can obviously access tons of stuff on YouTube about how to make this and how to make that, but one of the great things was getting that DVD. The DVD makers realizing that they had to bolster up the package, so you'd get either a second DVD. I also have DVDs that you had to turn over. Does that still happen?
Oh yeah. Flipper discs.
We
call them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think my first Goodfellas is a turnover, which is great. I think it's maybe I'm wrong, but there's definitely something that I used to watch a lot, and it was like turn over now. But yeah, so I still have my DVDs now and Blu-rays. Do I watch them? Not as much, because you can unfortunately access movies from all different angles. Am I spending as much money on streaming as I did when I was buying DVDs? I'm not sure about that. Probably less on streaming. I mean, probably more in the future because the prices are going up. But my great, luxury and fun was, and you guys, I'm sure, exactly the same, as going in and buying a bunch of DVDs, or even then buying some ones that you weren't sure about, and then leaving them in the package too long, and then realizing 6 months later, okay, let's open it and watch it. And then for me growing up, that the middle bit was all of the access to the behind the scenes stuff, which I know still exists, but it's much harder to get it doesn't exist on Netflix. The only time I've seen it on Netflix recently, and I have to say I thought it was an amazing film, was Athena. I don't know if you've seen Athena. It was a French film by Romain Gravas, Costa Gravas' son. It's all shot in multiple one shots is unbelievably amazing from a technical point of view. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they knew so much. They knew it was so unbelievable technically, but the film's on there, and then next to it is a 37-minute behind the scenes, which is totally rare. And I watched both straight away because the film's great on its own, but you're, as a filmmaker, you're watching it going, how the hell did they do that? And it's weird. Netflix almost knew, and then they put this fantastic half-an-hour documentary on it. But if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's like La Haine. It's like set during a riot on a French housing estate. But it's like some sort of medieval siege. It's incredible. But a lot of one-shot deals, and how they did those is unbelievable. But yeah, ultimately, and that's why. And what I don't have in this country is the Criterion channel. Because it never came here. But I wonder if that's the kind of channel that the real streamer that I really want, which is films that I can watch and then stuff about the films. But it's strange, isn't it? The streamers aren't really interested in. I noticed Disney Plus do it a bit with their Star Wars stuff and Marvel stuff. They'll have they'll do a B-roll hour, which is quite good. But I miss that. I miss that package of flipping it over and going, oh right, director's commentary. I haven't listened to a director's commentary now in years, and I know they exist, but it's because the DVDs, because the streamers aren't interested in you watching, listening to that.
It seems like your job keeps you busy too, so it's tough to
carry.
I mean, even for us,
yeah,
it's even for us hard to find time to invest in all that extra content and that's,
or just, I guess, to watch movies in and of themselves.
Even to watch movies, yeah.
If you're off,
well, look,
here, there, and everywhere.
It's the joke about Netflix, isn't it? And I'm, unfortunately, I do it every night. Is you spend an hour and a half going through Netflix looking for something to watch, and then you go, oh well, I've run out of time. So I think they know that. I think they know that's part of it.
I've oftentimes spent more time looking for a movie to watch than the runtime of the actual movie, because you have so many options. The options are endless.
And too many options, I think. And then it's whereas if you'd gone down the shops and you'd got or the guy had come around your house with a suitcase full of videos, you kind of
that's the way I like it.
That's
what I want in my world.
Get yourself a nice Samsonite suitcase.
I think I'm going to become one. I think I'm going to start a service.
You're going to become that guy.
I'm not making it up. It's not some sort of weird Proustian memory that I've made up. He did exist, and I'll have to find out what it was about. But I know it was illegal. Obviously, it wasn't Mr. Blockbuster. It was like a it was a pirate.
It was Craig. It was Craig.
He was the movie man.
That for now.
Just call him the movie man.
Yeah. So what do you guys then think? Because obviously, your podcast is about physical media. It's coming back, and I wonder why you think. Whether it's the time or it's COVID that have done it, why do you think it's? Because people are buying more vinyl all of a sudden, and I think maybe we've been stuck in our houses. We need stuff. I don't know, or is it a reaction to streaming because it doesn't really exist?
I do think that there's I think there are some that there's a reaction to, like, whenever there's an abundance of something, there's always people that want to fight back against that popular thing. People. You want to be on the other side of it and be contrarian in a way, but also I think people do realize that with the pandemic that if it's not there in your hands, there's a impermanence to not a permanence to something like film in the arts if you don't actually own it, because what we're realizing, especially a lot lately, is that even if you think you own something, you don't really own it if you're owning it digitally, because even that can be taken away from you.
We see that constantly. We see that very often times where people will buy a movie digitally, whether it be through iTunes or I don't even know if iTunes exists anymore, but Apple or whatever, and then they'll go back into the library a year or two later and it's gone, and they don't give you a refund. They don't,
because what it is you're buying the access to a film as long as that company has
access
it.
to it.
That's what you're buying. You're not buying the movie really. So
and in a way, it's the same thing with physical media. Is you buy it Well, it's available for you to buy as long as the company putting it out has the rights to it, essentially. So in a way, it's the same thing, but at least when the company no longer has the rights to it, you can still have it. Like it's
Mm.
still there. You can still
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it. For me and from my perspective, when it comes to kind of this resurgence of buying things, or buying physical media, it seems like there are just more people who have an appreciation for it now than ever before. They seem to have not a reverence for it, but they seem to have there's so many different facets to it. Like it feeds the need of a collector, it feeds the need of a film fan. If you're a collector and a film fan, you get a double
Mhm.
satisfaction, I guess. Also, it comes when you can feed the curation of your own personal library. Just buy the movies you want versus like having to jump into a streaming pool to find
Mm.
the things you want. You can cater it to all of your needs, whatever your needs may be.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't think you can quite do that with streaming. Now, that's not to say everybody
Yeah,
does that. Not everybody likes certain genres, not everybody likes certain, movies and whatnot. So you can cater it depending on your needs. And I just think it's maybe a little fatalism, but I feel like we're reaching the plateau where physical media is maybe on its last format, so everybody's kind of hoarding it all in,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I've had a lot of discussions here on the podcast we've had, Steven, where it's like, is this 4K, is 4K the end
Mhm.
of the resolution we can sell to a mass market of
Yeah,
consumers to kinda convince them that this is better than what you just had. With the rising cost of things, how far can you push the same things over and over again? Like you were just saying, David, we went from VHS, DVD upgrade to Blu-ray, and then now Blu-ray to the 4K world. It does help that, going hand in hand, movie productions have kind of upgraded along with it, going
mhm,
from analog cameras to 8K cameras or higher resolution
mhm.
now, so that, everything is kind of moving technologically forward together, hand in hand. So you kind of get that satisfaction. A brand new movie is going to look pretty damn good on your home theater setup. If you do have a home theater setup, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
part of the marketing world, it's like, how can you sell these giant TVs to people now when people don't have the room, don't have the money? People don't care watching on their phone. It is the same to them
exactly.
as watching on a large screen.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it really all
Yeah.
depends.
And do you
It's
think
so much facets to it.
are the big studios? They're probably not, are they? They're not, are they still putting as much money into a DVD release?
Depending
Or
on the studio.
it's not.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
uh, Disney is, I think, scaled back a bit, specifically over the last several years when launching Disney Plus, obviously huge for them.
Mm,
Put all their catalog stuff on there versus physical media. They don't have to spend as much. Um, yeah, but some companies are still putting out a
mhm.
quantity. I mean, Warner Bros. I think is celebrating their 100 years
Yeah, I saw that.
of being a
Yeah,
studio.
yeah,
So
yeah,
now they're like, here's
yeah,
commemorate 100 years
yeah,
of Warner Brothers. Here's the same movies we put out on Blu-ray before, but it
yeah,
says 100
in a
years on it.
package. Yeah, yeah,
And,
Well,
uh,
and then there's like Paramount who seem to have decided that now it's important to do it. Paramount had a lot of their back catalog kind of has been in limbo for a long time, and now
mm,
now they're putting out a lot more
yeah,
stuff, and they
they've
even
woken up over the
yeah
last few years to put out
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of their back catalog because they have such a rich
yeah,
catalog.
yeah,
Them Universal has been putting out things right along with Universal licenses out to a lot of other smaller companies,
mm,
so that I guess like they can handle the whole production side of it when it comes to physically making the discs and all that kind of stuff. Sony has Columbia's back catalog,
mm,
so they've been delegating that out to different companies over the years. Um, some other
But
companies are like a question mark to me. It's like
yeah,
Amazon now owns part of MGM, so
mm.
it's like, what's going to happen with all of that? Disney now
but
owns 20th
but the
Century
whole
Fox.
but
What's going to
that
happen with
whole
that?
overall yeah but that whole overall like experience of a what a boutique label seems to do
Mm,
seems to be your best experience with physical media these days because the investment that a major studio is going to put in even their own product when it comes to features and things is not still not really. I mean, there are exceptions, but for the
Mm,
most part, these boutique labels, whether it's Arrow Video, Criterion Collection,
Mhm.
so on and so on. They're
Eureka,
the
Second
ones that,
Sight.
yeah, they're the ones that are honestly really, it seems to be, you're getting your best investment when it comes to
Yeah,
physical media.
they'll
So
acquire the distribution rights, and then I guess, depending on their size, they're the ones who pay for all of the extras that you're talking about, the
Yeah, yeah,
commentaries,
yeah.
the
yeah,
making ofs, behind the
Mhm.
scenes, or go get the stuff that may already exist out there they can
And
get
put it
their
in
hands
the
on.
package, yeah.
They're kind of a middleman, kind of a saving grace middleman,
Mhm.
really,
Definitely,
for a
yeah.
lot of this stuff.
And is it more expensive than to produce the DVDs, or is it still relatively, you know what I mean? Because if
I,
you're a big studio, they were obviously pumping them out and saving money.
I think from what we know, we don't run our label, but
Mm.
from what we are told, it's not a business you make a lot of money in.
Yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
So they are, a lot of these labels, I think, are running on passion.
Mm.
It's a lot of passion. It's a lot of
Small
wanting
companies,
to,
yeah.
yeah, small companies, and just really, some of them, I think, endear themselves towards preservation. They like to, they actually are making new, they're restoring films. They're keeping them alive. That's the Criterion Collection. They
Yeah.
very much are in that business of preserving and even going to theaters and showing the movies again. And that's a lot of what they do. But then
Mm.
you have other places like, Imprint out of Australia, who don't do restoration work, but they do create a lot of contextual things to help make the movies, getting a more wide experience of these films. And
Mm.
they're also getting a lot of films and putting out a lot of things that haven't seen the light of day in a while. So
Mm.
there's different labels that have different,
Agendas or
agendas
Yeah.
or
motivations.
abilities,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
some have more money to invest in preservation, and others are able to just put that money towards contextual stuff and getting you a nice
Mm.
package
Yeah.
and putting it out into the world
And
so you can have it.
it is, yeah, I guess, some of them are rather limited. A lot of the
Mm.
things we talk about only have 1,000 copies in existence. I guess keeping costs low and demand
Mhm.
high, really, because
Yeah. Yeah.
usually people see those numbers and they get kind of nervous,
Yeah,
and they'll
or
be,
excited because it's then it becomes something to cherish, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
physical
very much
and
so.
it's limited, so
And
that's
I think that's what perpetuates it a lot, is
yeah.
is this not wanting to
Oh
miss
yeah,
out, and
I think
and
there's an
and some of that.
exclusivity to physical media now. Like you're part of some secret cool club, that spreads around the world. That you just feel kind of like you have an extra pep in your step because I
Which
have
is
something that no
which
one
is
else has.
strange because, 10 years ago,
No one talked
everyone
about it.
there were
Yeah,
DVDs everywhere and, like, they were just flying
they
around the
couldn't
place,
they
Yes.
couldn't
4
give
by
them
10,
away.
and but it moves so quickly. I wonder what the next step is in 5 to 10 years' time. I'm sure the streamers and the studios are trying to figure it out themselves, but
Yeah,
something's
I'm
gonna
sure they
happen.
are.
I think
It's
something's gonna happen with
ethering.
like, they have to figure out the streaming issues they're having right now. I think that'll dictate what happens.
Yeah,
I
but
think what
I do wanna go ahead,
I was
David.
just gonna say, I think, it's only my opinion, I think the next big thing is really, and it won't involve physical media, so I think is one of is them starting to buy each other. It's gonna
Yeah,
eat
It's already
themselves.
happening. Yeah.
Like
We've heard
yeah.
two of the big ones are gonna combine, and then you've got no choice. Like that's where it's going, isn't it? I suppose.
we hear
Yeah.
merger stories all the time now, and because it keeps happening, like Disney buying 20th Century Fox. 20th Century Fox was around for a century,
Yeah,
and then all of a
yeah,
sudden, boom, all gone off
yeah.
the face of the map.
Of course, the Warner Brothers Discovery thing going on right now,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
that merging,
yeah,
and
Warner Bros.
figuring out how that's gonna
How
exist.
that's going to kind of
And then they
persist
say
going forward.
Amazon and MGM, but I think it'd be more like a couple of a Titan's going to buy a Titan or
Mm.
combine.
Yeah.
Like
I've heard,
it
yeah,
must be the
I,
logical.
yeah, I've
I think
heard
Apple's the
Apple.
next. Apple's gonna be the next one. Yeah, they're gonna buy something really big,
As it
I'm
is,
sure, soon.
some of them are starting to buy movie theaters, so they're trying to get
Right.
like put their
Yeah, yeah,
foothold back in that,
yeah,
like in
yeah,
that realm.
yeah.
For years and years, that used to be completely separate. Like studios or companies could not really own studios, and then they reversed some type of case, and they
that role has been taken
they
back.
threw
Yeah,
those rules into the trash, and were like, now it's opening up the floodgates
Yeah,
to who can own what now, and who can manipulate what. The theatrical experience, I think, is also a completely different arena that's still ever changing. I know when the pandemic started, like like we've been saying, that it changed everything. We thought movie theaters were gonna go,
yeah,
go
exactly.
away.
Yeah, and everyone's back in there, and
Now everybody's back.
yeah,
It's not like it was,
yeah.
but maybe it's close enough to
It's
satisfy people.
persisting. It's persisting. I think people with the absence of it completely, basically, you start to get a little bit romantic about it a little bit. I think it's always going to be there. I think there's just going to be more limitations and less theaters, and I think there's always going to be people that value that experience. Even though other people can make that experience not as good.
Yeah, I think
Unfortunately,
yeah, I think filmmakers ultimately may be the ones who save it. I think, and have saved it. Remember when Warner Brothers wanted to put everything on streaming? All their filmmakers were like, "We
Yeah.
didn't sign up for this."
nah.
Yeah, well, they
Christopher
lost
Nolan
Nolan,
was one of the
didn't
big
they?
ones.
They lost
Yeah,
Nolan. Yeah.
his whole thing is the theatrical experience. I mean, David, you've been on his sets, you've been involved in his productions. Those movies are made,
Mhm.
on such a
Mhm.
scale that they
Mhm.
have to be exhibited on the big screen.
But it comes down to money at the end, doesn't it?
True.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
and actually, in a strange way, it's money, and then for the filmmaker, it's a certain point where it's like, and my film, the tiny film, as an example, is you just want to get it out there. So we
Yeah.
got trapped in a distribution deal, and all I really wanted out of it wasn't a couple of quid every month, which was nothing. I wanted as many people to see it as possible, but I didn't realize that until I'd signed the piece of paper. But ultimately for a filmmaker, it's like, of course, it needs to make money so you can get another show, but really you want as many people to see it in the best way possible, or any
Yeah.
way possible at a certain point. So you know, you see some names of filmmakers sort of signing up to streaming, and you think, well, that's just because they're getting enough money to do what they want to do, and it's getting out there, and people can see
Yeah.
it, however that is. So that's what's behind filmmakers' choices is it has to make just enough to get another go, but you want as many people to see it. So
Yeah.
on that subject, my film
Yeah.
will be out soon.
Yeah.
Hey, I was gonna say, hopefully,
Hopefully.
because is there ever been a talk? Well, I know you're having issues with getting it out there just in general, but like, is there ever a thought of the film having some type of physical release, or maybe being attached to maybe another, like maybe a Kubrick film? Maybe if they re-released a Kubrick film, could they
Yeah, I mean,
attach your
it's
film?
been attached a couple of times. If it gets attached to Barry Lyndon, then you're in for a very long night, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But it has been shown with Barry Lyndon. I didn't go to it. I was at the festival, and I thought, not even I am going to sit through nearly 4 hours. But anyway, I
Yeah.
know it's got an intermission. And then you've had Chris O'Neill on from the Triskel Cinema. He very
Yeah.
kindly put our film together with Film Worker, which was the film about Leon, the documentary about Leon Vitali, which was quite a short documentary. So my film fit very nicely, and subject matter obviously fit very nicely. But yeah, I do get asked about DVDs, and I might even have a look and see how expensive it is to make a batch. But ultimately,
Yeah.
so I suppose I'm saying the same thing. Is ultimately I want it to get out there and for as many people to see it, and then try and get reaction, good or bad.
Definitely.
We
Yeah.
know
You want to
we
hear
know
more
what the
people.
internet can be
Yeah.
like.
Oh no! Well, yeah, that's with it. That's with being any kind of artist and putting yourself out there. Before we finish up, I do need one more thing about your film. We got to know about how you got Brian Cox to do your narration, because that's one of the first things that you hear in the film is you hear his voice. I'm like, oh my god, he got Brian Cox to do, and of course his narration is not only like a straightforward narration, but then there's kind of a
he's
breaking
in,
the fourth wall,
he's
talking
in
to
the
the yeah. So yeah, tell
what?
us about the getting Brian Cox to
Well,
narrate your
we for
film.
a long time we had Liam Neeson.
Oh wow,
Would have been pretty cool.
dang.
And in the original script, there's a love scene in the film. You remember they're kind of making out,
Yeah.
and then it pans, and there's a little visual kind of Mel Brooks gag with someone playing a harp. The original idea was that it was the narrator who was standing in the corner, so he was narrating the love scene. Then it would pan to Liam Neeson, and he'd be standing in the corner. We at a
Oh
certain
wow.
point we knew that was never going to happen with anyone, let alone. So then we went a long way down with Liam Neeson, and it didn't work out. And then I sort of started going through a list and emailing people. It's funny because I keep looking over there because Brian Cox's biography is just on the other side of my computer, so he's sort of looking at me. But and then we had a list, and I emailed his voice agent, which I was lucky because it wasn't his physical agent. I don't think it would have happened. And she said, yeah, he's he likes Kubrick and Barry Lyndon, and he likes the script, and he's got Irish heritage and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, this sounds promising. And then like a day later, she rang me and says, yeah, he can do it tomorrow. And I was like, oh my god. So then we had to
Jeez.
speed around to get a studio in Soho for him to come in, and X, Y, and Z. And then he very kindly came in. And the reason he could do it is fantastic, because he came in, he did it. He was looking at the film, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize." He didn't realize he was in it as much, So he was sitting there doing it, and like you said, he was narrating it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm." And of course, it was post production, so Dara, who was on screen, was he was trying to fit, he was acting, and I started to get nervous because I think he realized it wasn't just. I can just do a bit of narration and leave. He had to do a bit of business. And so then he got into it, and he really liked the film. And we talked about Kubrick, and we talked about Michael Mann, because of course he had worked with Michael as Hannibal Lecter. And so we had, it was good. And then I kind of got down to it, and I sort of said, I didn't ask him why he could do it, but it got around to that. And he said, oh, I'm under contract with a new HBO thing, and I can't do anything else. So I'm sort of just waiting. And of course, that HBO thing became Succession. Now, if I emailed his agent now, I suspect I wouldn't have got a response. But bizarrely, because of Succession had been obviously stalling to start, he couldn't do any other acting work. So he was like, this just came up, and he was like, that's quite fun. And he did it. And then I think literally like a week later, he went off to New York, and they started filming. So after that, I would never have heard from him ever again. But so it was a bit of good timing and good luck, and good luck for me, because obviously he's brilliant anyway. But now he's had a sort of renaissance, second wind as an actor, and now he's.
And now we just need to get your film out there.
Now we need to get that film out there, and obviously sell it as a Brian Cox film. Obviously, that's
of course. Brian Cox stars.
Put him on the poster.
We did. We did. There's a couple of posts. Yeah, that you can't. That's the original poster, but all the other posters have got this red strip across the corner. You got to sell them. Introducing, including Brian Cox. So, in any way possible, you've got to sell these things. But so he was really nice and very, and he's brilliant in it.
And funny enough, when we recently talked to John Allen Simon, he had done an interview with Brian Cox for Out of the Blue physical media release, and he just seems. I'm glad to see certain actors and filmmakers that seem to be really actually showing their passion for film, and not just kind of being in movies and stuff. I like seeing when people that are in it are showing their actual passion. Filmmakers like Edgar Wright and Tarantino's and people like that really they hold up the history of film, so that people don't forget about it, because I think there's always this sense of looking forward to the new thing, and especially in today's world, and not looking back at what influenced these things, and not reminding people that there's this rich history of film that you can go back to and look at, and that's what physical media really does for us. I think that's
and that's the sort of danger for the next generation with not physical media and streaming, isn't it? Because even my kids, they don't really care about films. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't.
Yeah,
they might love them, but they don't own them. So there's sort of a lack of connection.
There's a disconnection. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that may it may cheapen the art form going forward, because it's just pure content. It's like, I'll watch 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and Netflix registers that 2 minutes as interest, but you wouldn't leave the cinema after 2 minutes, or
Exactly.
would you
Yeah.
turn off
I
the DVD?
always,
But
yeah, I always, and you guys can come at me, but I always kind of describe streaming as the fast food of film watching. It's the quick and convenient way to get to things, and it is a nice tool to have, especially for us, because we weekly talk about movies that are getting announced.
mm,
Sometimes you can't find them, so
mm,
we need to use streaming as a tool to
mhm.
watch a lot of these films, even when they're in crappy conditions. But I don't think it should. I don't feel like it should ever be the preferred way to watch things. If you have access to a physical disc, or if you can go see it in the theater, that's the way I think
Yeah.
you should seek out seeing something, and at least for your first experience.
Definitely.
It's obviously it's tough based off of everyone's situation,
Everybody's
living
situation's
situation,
different. Yeah,
financial situation. Streaming is, I mean, for parents with young children, streaming has probably saved their
you
lives.
know this, Dave. You know that.
I do,
You
definitely,
know.
definitely. Disney Plus has paid for itself. It's fine. It's perfect. But
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
they do get, they either watch something over and over again, which is fine.
Yeah,
Um, but they don't. Yeah, there's no love for it, and also what you're then at the mercy of the algorithms telling you what to watch next.
yeah,
Whereas, kind of, even in the DVD shop, or the guy with the video bag, the suitcase, you take a chance. Like, you can take a chance online, but actually most of the time Netflix is kind of telling you, based on what you've touched or what you've watched, what you should watch next. And I often go onto Netflix and go 1950s movies. It's not many, obviously, as you
yeah.
can imagine. They are
No.
trying to expand. They are trying to expand that world. I think they've cottoned on that but there's a handful, literally, but there's nothing there really. And honestly, young viewers won't find that. They're not going to go looking
Yeah,
for it, but it's not going to come up on their home screen, is it?
Yeah, I think the fun for I mean, not older generations, because Steven and I don't think consider ourselves old, but it
getting there.
the fun for me, um, is the seeking out of cinema, like searching for it. So, going deep, doing a deep dive into um just like back catalogs of
Mhm,
directors, back
mhm,
catalogs of old Hollywood stuff, because you'll see the same movie show up over and over again on streaming services or on best of lists in quotes, because it's all subjective, and it'll always be like the same movies, like Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, all these kinds of movies. But it's like if you dig a few deep layers lower, you'll find like just buried treasures of
mm,
amazingness.
mm,
And sometimes you lose that when you only have access to a small pool, or
mhm,
when you don't really, have the inkling or the urge to kind of dig deeper.
mm.
You just kind of be susceptible to that algorithm, and be susceptible to the way in which the apps want to push you. There's always like, this is what's trending now, this is our top 10 most watched, this is top 10 in this genre, top 10 in that
Yeah,
genre.
yeah,
And it's like you lose a little bit of that excitement, at least that I got in
mm,
discovery.
definitely.
um and I think what you can do to combat that is, I guess, yell at the younger generation and like tell them
Nah,
about it. Not yell at
one
them, but
thing
you know
that's
what I mean, like, hey, you guys
Introduce
like
them to
this,
stuff. Yeah,
here's
exactly.
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think what's important is, and this is what I'll advocate, is that I think I think with the younger generation, typically when their attitude is, typically when you're young, you like to have, you're all about your individualness, like being an individual, being unique.
Mm,
And I think that you got to keep doing that. You got to keep trying to be unique in every way you can, and not try to be trendy, not try to be, trying to just watch what everybody else is watching. Try to be different. Try to, listen to some different voices. Try to find some different things, and just keep that. That's what I push forward in every aspect of my life, is to not try to, not just to be contrarian,
mm,
but to feel like that I'm a unique person. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm getting caught up in the machine of what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
I like
Cinema
to
can be
keep,
the
I
same
like to
way.
listen to different people's voices and make up my own mind, and not just the same voices and feel like I'm a robot. Like, and I think that that's what a lot of these conveniences do, is create this almost like roboticness. Like you said, they don't really love movies. They're just kind of
Consuming
they're
them,
just
consuming them
consuming
just
them,
to
and
consume them.
Mm.
Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
and
It's like those big Netflix movies that, and I haven't worked on any of them, so I'm not going to annoy anyone, but they're big ones, and then they say 900 million people have watched this, and you just think,
yeah,
but can you remember one of them? Like,
yeah.
That's
the
a
one I'm
whole
thinking
other.
of is it Red Notice, or there's
Yeah, Red Notice was the
they
big
put
one.
these
Yeah.
films out and they say it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to Netflix, and then a week later everyone's just like, did you, and then, is that
Bye.
the one with,
See?
there's one with Ryan Reynolds, and that's Red Notice,
The
and
Rock and
Yeah,
Dwayne Johnson. Yeah.
absolutely appalling. It's just rubbish. You know,
that's another
great
thing.
mastery in filmmaking or whatever,
Yeah,
but
that's another
they
thing
tell
with
you it's
streaming.
amazing, and then it's gone.
Yeah,
So,
with streaming is the constant consumption and the pace in which you're consuming it. You can go through entire television series in a matter of days. You can go through
yeah,
Well,
dozens of
yeah.
movies in a matter of, a week. And are you consuming any of it? I find myself falling into that
But
with a lot of television. Is I'll watch a season of a show, and then the next season will come on a year or two later. I can't
mm,
remember anything
mm,
from the first season that
mm,
came out before
mm,
because I watched it in a day and a half,
yeah,
and
well,
it's just to move on to the next one.
what's funny is streaming's even like almost rediscovering the proper way to watch things, because you got a lot of these streaming services are like starting to do like one
weekly, yeah,
episode a week
yeah,
again. And it's funny that they're like, it's like this a new thing. It's
It's
like,
like
that's
everyone
how TV,
forgot that
that's
that was
literally
just
how TV was before.
that's how
you know
TV is still.
exactly.
If you-
Yeah. And
I
now
mean,
it's even going back to, so yeah, oh yeah, let's release one a week, and now it's like, oh, and also you can buy into having adverts. So you think, hang on, we've just flipped
yeah,
around just to having normal television again, but we're just
yeah,
paying for it in
exactly.
a different way.
Streaming
Yep.
is not even slowly. It's gotten to the point where you're just back to cable or satellite television.
It's cable again.
It's the
Yeah,
same
Yeah.
price wise.
yeah,
Now they're introducing ads like you would see
yeah,
on television.
yeah. And
I
you're
mean, the only
getting
thing
weekly
good is I
content.
guess if you pay more, you don't get ads, but still the
Yeah,
cost goes up, so you still end up
yeah.
paying. Um,
I
so
mean,
it's like
the weekly thing is just, it is obviously a desperation to keep subscribers, isn't it? I noticed with Andor, which they struggled with, but in the end, I thought was very good. They struggled with it and then gave away the first two episodes after the season had completed. They gave away two episodes to another. This was in the US, the other channels. So they were desperate to get people to come over and complete the set. But the week
Yeah,
thing was definitely to make sure that you just don't subscribe for a month and then bounce. It's like you
exactly.
subscribe
Yeah.
for 3 months. And so the consumer's always going to be, the big business is going to be ahead of you, but the consumer will figure you out pretty quickly too, won't he? And
Yeah.
as I said, they're just picking and choosing and taking, and what they
Yeah.
want.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And this is an ever
it's
expanding
it's ever
conversation. We could go
evolving,
forever. Yeah.
and there's a lot of tightrope walking going on right now
Yeah.
in the world of entertainment.
definitely.
Yeah. But David, I feel like we could continue to talk to you for a long time, and maybe, I would say we should bring you back, and hopefully next time we bring you back, we could be talking about
Whatever
your
new
film.
things got
Yeah,
working
well,
on.
your new things, or Kubrick by Candlelight finally getting some type of distribution or physical release. I would love to bring you back for that. So
Thank you.
thank
Thanks for
you
having us.
for
Thanks. It's been very great fun.
great. Yes, thank you. If we can only leave our guests with not being annoyed by us, that's our greatest
That's a good
success.
theory. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
if
it's
you're
been
not
great fun. Thank you so much and I'm glad you
you're
enjoyed
welcome.
the film, and it will, yeah, hopefully be out
Yeah, it was
soon.
great. For those of you listening who aren't familiar with David O'Reilly and his work, chances are you have. If you go over to his IMDb, he's worked on such films as little film called Inception. He's worked on a little film called Rogue One, Solo: A Star Wars Story, Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, as well as the Batman, and then upcoming projects as well as a host of other things that you've all probably seen. that
And
it's a lot of things, big
and the
things.
joke and we were talking about this before. If you go look him up on IMDb, a lot of David O'Reillys.
Yes.
Um,
You
so,
you may wanna
just
look for,
look,
his
it'll
What was
say
the
movies.
first one?
location. Yeah, it's one of the first ones, and it's like location manager, location scout. You'll see it there,
Or
and
just
yeah,
look up Kubrick by Candlelight, and you'll see his name right
and
there.
you'll
Click
find
on
it.
it,
Yeah,
and then you can see everything.
definitely.
Brilliant.
But David, thank you for the conversation, and we'll see you around.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Andrew.
And we're back, guys. Once again, fantastic interview with filmmaker location scout David O'Reilly. Please go check out his stuff. Go check out his film, Kubrick by Candlelight. And with that said, Andrew, what do we do? What do we usually do after this?
Where are we? What's happening? We do have a bunch of movie or Blu-ray announcements this week, specifically. Once again, the first of the month came around, and the Vinegar Syndrome and their partner label slates dropped upon us. We had, I think it's about 18 or 19 releases from
Sounds
there,
about right.
but before we get to that towards the end of the show, we do have some other things early on. Some tidbits. I guess we'll get into some tidbits early on.
Tids.
Some tidbits. Our buddies over at Severin are prepping some 4K UHD releases in upcoming. Actually, I believe these are. I don't know. I think they're upgrades
I
or
know House at the Edge of the Park is a Blu-ray upgrade. I
yes.
believe.
So, House on the Edge of the Park, Burial Ground, and Zombie Holocaust
Yeah.
are all getting 4K UHD editions sometime this year. Um, and we don't know when. We don't know really any other like special feature details. I'm assuming House on the Edge of the Park will just port over the special features from
Maybe.
there,
I mean, look, we
or
have the
new, or there could be.
well, we know we have issues with where when companies just do the 4K upgrade and they don't add anything extra. And I know that a company like Severin doesn't want to be a part of that club. So I have a feeling that there might be something more that gets added to this. And plus the stuff that's already been there. So
Yes, yeah, and I think these will all be region free as well because 4K is still region free from what I understand, unless they've changed that. But yeah, so that's that from Severin. What was the other tidbit that we had, Stephen?
well, there was an announcement made about a recent film coming to the Criterion Collection soon, and that is the film All That Breathes, which is a documentary film that was just nominated as a documentary feature in this coming up Academy Awards. So the film follows two brothers who devote their lives to the quatonic efforts of protecting the black kite, a majestic bird of prey essential to the ecosystem of New Delhi,
Yes.
that has been falling from the sky at alarming rates. Amidst the environmental toxicity and society unrest, the the Kite Brothers, spend day and night caring for the creatures in their makeshift avian basement hospital. The film explores the connection between kites and Muslim brothers who help them return to the skies, offering a mesmerizing chronicle of interspecies coexistence. So that sounds like a cool story there.
Yeah,
And
and this movie recently came out. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it just came out. It came out at Sundance last year, and then I think it finally came out. I want to say February this year.
Yeah,
Finally
well,
got
yeah, I know
some
it's
theatrical.
coming to HBO Max, it looks like. So
Ah,
if it isn't already
okay,
there, but yeah, I mean the
that's what it
story
was.
sounds great. I mean, it sounds like something that might make me cry, because
Oh, okay.
films about animals and our connections with animals is something that I've that usually touches me. Usually,
Mm,
it usually
in a
gets
deep
to me
down personal way.
because
Yeah, it.
I mean I think animals, you know I definitely think animals, there's something there that's beyond, what we can see, that we have a deeper connection than we really could ever know.
I
Um,
will say
yeah.
it is streaming currently on HBO
Okay, cool,
Max
cool.
as of this recording. It clocks in about an hour and 36 minutes, and yeah, it's nominated for Best Documentary Oscar this year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely want to check this out. and it helps me with my Oscar watching that I'm usually pretty behind in
Mm.
now all the time. So,
Yeah,
um,
I actually got to watch the documentaries now that I think about it.
yeah. But all right. Well, moving on. Another one, a single release we got here. 101 Films, a British label, announced that they are doing a Bob Clark horror collection that will release on April 3rd. Bob Clark, he's kind of he's a director that kind of made his way into a lot of different genres. I believe, didn't he eventually do Baby Geniuses?
I think he did, but I'm also pretty sure he did. Didn't he do A Christmas Story?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he
He
did.
did A Christmas Story as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
varied career. He a very much a all over the place director. But early on, he did realm into the horror genre a lot.
yeah.
And
That's where he got his start.
yeah,
Was and this 3-film box set has Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, Death Dream, and Black Christmas, which is once again getting
yeah,
another release.
yeah,
Recently, I believe Shout Factory / Scream Factory put out a 4K edition of it,
yes,
and apparently it looks very very good.
yeah.
So
So
people were
so
really
yeah.
really liking that.
So this is a UK release of the 4K. I'm sure it's the probably same restoration, all that stuff. Um, but
Yeah,
I'm
Bob
sure
Clark. Yeah, I was just gonna say Bob Clark also directed Porky's and Porky's 2 the
because
next
we
day.
need that, right?
Um, there was I was just saying there was a Blu-ray release of I think all of these at one point.
Yeah.
I know Porky's got a release by itself, and Porky's 2 got also a release by itself, and then I think Porky's 3 was only in like a box set or something.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Anywho, I was just random
I'm glad we're
thoughts in
going
my
down the
head.
Bob Clark hole,
I guess we're going on the Bob Clark hole.
which I'm sure in
Uh,
Porky's they're all about holes in that movie.
I guess so. But
Bad
yeah,
joke.
this looks like a really cool box. Lots of horrific artwork on the cover. I mean that in the literal sense. Um, yeah, Steven, I know you've seen Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Death Dream.
Yes, I did.
And I think
I've seen Black Christmas. It's
I would
been
say and you've seen Black Christmas.
yeah,
So
I've
you've
seen
seen them
it.
all.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I've definitely seen it. But the other two films, children shouldn't play with dead things. Very low budget. Where this group of theater actors that go to this small island to kind of do like a séance thing, and they actually try to uncover a dead body, and it gets weird. It's to be honest with you, didn't love it. It was okay. I mean, if there's something more there that I'm missing, please somebody tell me. But I found it to be kind of meandering, kind of you know it's got kind of that George Romero-esque type of feel to it. Very raw. It didn't do much for me. It's but the other film, Death Dream, aka Dead of Night, I actually really liked. And it's the story is about this family whose son is in Vietnam, and during at the beginning of the film, not a spoiler or anything, he dies in battle, and then at like right when he's dying, he hears his mom's voice, mother calling out to him, and then we get to the family, and the family finds out he's passed, but then a little bit later, not too long after that, he shows up at their doorstep. So now the story's about what's going on with him. Why is he suddenly back to life? And yeah, I think it's a really like cool, slocky kind of like, I guess you could call him a ghoul. He's not necessarily a zombie. He's more like a ghoul, right? I don't know. What would you call him?
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, is he really dead? Is he alive? Is he something else entirely?
Yeah.
Is he really the person who he was before? And all of those kind of questions come in. Yeah, I saw this movie a few years ago, and I ended up really liking it. And yeah, that's definitely a recommendation from me, and I think Steven as well.
Yeah.
I think you wholeheartedly kind of like it.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought the effects were cool. I thought the just the kind of overall vibe of the movie just was something I was engaged with it the whole time. I mean it, and there's some really fun scenes of with like I said, I don't want to tell the whole story, but
Yeah, don't tell the whole
yeah,
thing.
but yeah,
But this did get a Blu-ray release from Blue Underground in 2017 here in Region A, US land. A region-free release actually, interesting, and it's still in print. So if you want to get these individually, I think they're all available individually. I know, like we just said, Black Christmas is, um,
yeah.
and Death Dream is, but I'm not sure about. Yeah, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is actually getting a 4K release. No, actually, just got a 4K release this past December from VCI,
Oh,
and
okay,
as well as a Blu-ray release at the same time.
interesting.
So I remember when that was announced. I remember seeing that cover. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. So you can get all of these individually. Two of them are already on 4K here. Huh. I wonder
Well,
when Deathstream's gonna get that 4K announcement.
yeah,
Watch it happen like this next week.
it nothing
From Blue
surprises
Underground.
me. Yeah, yeah, nothing would surprise me. But
Nothing would surprise me more. So that's from 101 Films. Moving on from there, I want to mention just another smaller company that we really don't talk about a lot, Sandpiper Pictures.
yes,
They have some April releases, and a couple of these are interesting to me um, in general, just because you've been hearing a lot about Elvis Presley lately with the Baz Luhrmann film Elvis recently getting all the awards buzz and all that kind of stuff. But one of Elvis Presley, the real Elvis Presley, one of his films, Kid Galahad, is getting a Blu-ray release from Sandpiper Pictures.
okay.
And so that's kind of cool. I really don't have any of his films in my collection. Now that I think about it,
Hmm.
Steven, you?
I don't think so. That's
No,
yeah,
I know. Blue Hawaii just
yeah,
got a Paramount release from their Paramount Presents line, which is kind of in flux, I guess, because a lot of those movies they put out during that line are all getting 4K upgrades now,
yeah,
even though these releases just came out. It's kind of like I said at the time when they were coming out, why aren't these just 4K releases? They're already 4K restorations they're using for these. Why not just put them out in 4K? And they end up doing it anyway.
Hey, Andrew,
But yes,
it's called money. They don't want to
money,
spend the money
money,
on it. Um,
money, money.
but these smaller companies that put out Blu-rays seem to see how important it is, and then they put the money up
Yeah,
for it, and they're not making a lot of money already. So,
true, true.
maybe it's just they're not thinking well enough. Somebody needs to tell them.
I know they do. But there are a couple of other ones here. The Fantastics, and that's right,
Is
Fantastics
that proper English?
is a musical from 1995. That's the way it's spelled here, and they really emphasize the whole sticks of it all.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so this is a musical. I don't know if I think it's an adaptation of a musical, like a movie adaptation of a musical. I don't know. I don't know the film,
yeah.
but the next film is called Stanley and Iris, and this is starring Robert De Niro and Jane Fonda, directed by Martin Ritt. Now, Martin Ritt for me is a director whose work I have an own section in my collection of his work, because he directed A Long Hot Summer. He directed Norma Ray. He directed the film HUD,
Mm,
which needs a Blu-ray release. It's a film starring Paul Newman, which just doesn't have a Blu-ray release at all. I still have the old, I think, Paramount DVD of it kicking around in my collection. Every time I look at it, I just frown because I need that Blu-ray. Um, I don't know why they're taking so damn long to do it. Paramount, come on. But yeah, he's directed a lot of films that I really like. The Spy Who Came in from the Cold, which is a Criterion film. He directed that. Paris Blues, another Paul Newman film, also starring Sidney Poitier as well as Joanne Woodward.
yeah,
He directed that film. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Just an underrated director who I'm pretty sure people have seen his stuff or heard of his stuff, but they don't realize that it's actually him.
yeah.
But yeah, this is one of his films, and I probably have to add that to my Martin Ritt section because I'm at my OCD about those things.
Mm.
But there's another film here called The Crocodile Hunter Collision Course. Of course,
Wonder who's in that. Yeah.
starring the late. I mean, he's passed away many many years. The late great Steve Irwin. Um, Crocodile Hunter Steve Irwin and his wife are mistaken for spies while trying to rescue a crocodile from poachers, who are really CIA operatives trying to retrieve top secret satellite equipment that the beastie swallowed. Um, I don't know if that's like a fake thing or if that was a real thing.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't.
know.
It feels like Steve Irwin and his wife and family would just be rescuing crocodiles for the heck
They're
of it.
just using real footage of them doing something, and then they
I
made a
guess
movie
so.
out of
But
it. I
yeah,
don't know.
Steve Irwin, of course, the iconic crocodile hunter, he still pops up in pop culture. He still pops up in videos. Um, People still reference him, talk about him, and he passed away many, many years ago. His children have grown up and kind of taken
Yes.
that mantle of, animal conservation and,
Yeah.
quality treatment of animals and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, he taught a whole generation to love and respect animals,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But that's it for Sandpiper Pictures.
Okay. Well, let's move over to the Scream Factory, Shout Factory stuff.
Ah, yes.
So we got uh some releases here that I'm not so sure about, but some of them that are
Okay.
so some that
Not
are
enthusiastic.
not super enthusiastic about a couple of these, but and then there's some that are kind of getting another release here with Shout Factory that we've seen recently get releases. We'll start there where we got a um another release of Brotherhood and the Wolf, which I believe got a release. Where did
That
they?
was one of the earliest ones we talked about when we first started the
What, you
show.
know what? Let me ask you this: was it also from Shout Factory, and this is now the 4K
Yeah, it
upgrade?
was.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. So they're upgrading their own release.
Yep. Once again, Shout Factory's at it again, and they're of course not adding any new features to this release.
It is
So,
getting a new 4K restoration of the film approved by by I believe the director is Christoph Gans.
which is
So
nice. I love that. I love that it's but people
yes.
are they just got this movie on Blu-ray. Not that
Not
long.
only that,
It's not that long
y-
ago.
no, I can tell you exactly when it was. My guess is 2 years.
It's
I
within two
mean that
years.
yeah, Brotherhood of the Wolf, which I is a movie that I like really wanted to get on Blu-ray, and I actually never did because there was an issue with the first printing of the Blu-ray where you
But
had
it's not even 2 years. It's July 27th, 2021.
yeah,
And then you had the
wow,
issues
that's
with issues with the release, which then kept people from wanting
yeah,
to
that you
buy
had
it.
to send you had to it was one of those where you had to send in the disc and they send you a replacement disc,
Yeah,
which is typical Shout Factory type of thing that they've done many times already. Um, yeah,
yeah,
so I kind of avoided that release right off the bat, but I guess not now.
yeah,
They just come back once again. It's
yeah,
like a carousel,
yeah,
just coming around. Um, yeah, I mean, I love the movie enough to where I probably will get it this time. The problem is yeah, they're typically Shout Factory has always been on the expensive side when it comes to their releases, whether
yeah.
it's Blu-ray or 4K. That's been the only thing, but it looks like it's a 3-disc edition, 4K and 2 Blu-rays. The last Blu-ray looks like it has all the special features on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some other ones here as well.
Yeah, another one I wanted to bring up, but well, I'll just start with the 4Ks. The Haunting is getting a 4K. The film from 1999 that I believe I've seen this one. This is stars it's a Jane Von Bunt film starring Liam Neeson, uh, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh, well, yeah, I've seen this movie. Big cast. It's one of the movies that kind of plays off more like a comedy than I expected it to, or at least it starts that way and then it gets more. I don't know. Have you seen this?
I saw it many, many years ago. I remember when it came out because it came
Yeah.
out in '99, and I was like 12, and I was going to the theater like every week for new movies. So I remember seeing the trailers for it. I can't remember if this is a remake of House on Haunted Hill or if it's a remake of the 1963 film The Haunting, but they all kind of take on the same premise.
Yeah.
It's a
Essentially.
haunted house,
Yeah.
haunted mansion type of thing. I remember the cast for this film being very, very good. You had Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, Lily Taylor, Bruce Stern. Yeah, John DeBont, who didn't he direct Speed, if I remember?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, yeah,
His
he
best
started out
movie.
as a
His best
cinematographer.
movie.
Yeah, he started out as a cinematographer turned director.
Yeah.
And this movie, I was literally just talking about Paramount Presents. Paramount Presents, uh, Paramount came out with an edition in 2020 of this movie. And this was number 10 of the Paramount Presents line. So
Damn.
this is already getting Not even 3 years later. Came out in October of
And this
2020.
is why Andrew said you got to just put your shit out in 4K.
Yeah,
It would have
it's
stopped
like
this. It would have stopped
it's
this right here.
yeah, I know, it would have prevented us from having to triple dip, I
Yeah.
guess.
Jesus.
What is interesting is they put out the Paramount Presents edition in 2020, then Paramount reissued a Blu-ray in 2021 of this movie, and then now in 2023 we're getting the 4K.
Oh man,
I'm like, it's a little excessive now.
it's getting out of hand. Getting out
But
of
either
hand.
way, you're gonna be getting this movie again in May if you want it. There's nothing here when it comes to the special features. I don't know if they're gonna carry over from the Paramount stuff. I don't know if Shout Factory got their hands on it, but yeah. But next one here, Steven, is a little interesting.
Oh, are we talking about Skyline?
Yes.
Because I
Goodness
don't know that there's
gracious.
anything interesting about this one. But go ahead.
I'm just saying interesting in the sense like I don't is there a real call for a
I
Skyline in
remember
4K?
this movie coming out, and and when I think I was working at the movie theater, you know, when it came out, and it's I don't remember people caring about this movie.
I remember when it came out as well. I remember very little about this movie other than it came out in 2010. It was one of those
I was definitely working at the
a
movie theater then.
was it
Yeah.
like an alien invasion
Yeah,
movie? I
yeah.
just feel like a lot of those were super like they made a lot of those in the 2000s and early 2010s.
Yes.
Because they would it was like
Well,
that holdover from the 90s
well,
with like
what it
Independence
was
Day and
just around that time, just around this time this movie came out. What big movie came out? District 9. District 9
yeah,
came
came out
out.
a year earlier.
Yeah, and it set off a wave of needing to do more of these kind of like aliens come and they're like here with us, but we're not, either there's a weird angle to it maybe, or and
Mm.
then we got things like Chronicle, like not too long after that, where people run into some alien things and it gives them superpowers, and like it felt like a thing that was happening, especially with superheroes like really booming during this period.
Oh yeah.
We needed to find ways to make everything kind of have a superhero angle to it. So
Yeah, there was another film that came out around the same time as Skyline. I can't remember the name of
I'm
it,
you know
so I'm
what
not even
movie
gonna
I
look it up.
always thought this was that movie that Chloe Grace Moretz was in. That
Oh
was
goodness.
What was that movie? I'll figure it out here in a second.
Is that the one that was based off of the young adult
It
novel?
was it was one of them young adult movies.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
You
about.
gotta tell me
Because
what it is though.
yeah, it's not the hose. It was. I'm gonna look it up. I'm
No,
on Chloe Grace Moretz's IMDb right now.
damn it, you're gonna get to me. Damn it.
Uh,
Never mind. I don't even know how to spell her name.
really? Man, she's been in a lot of films, by the way. No, man, I can't find it. Yeah, I went back too far.
I'm gonna have to be the savior here. Sorry,
No, you may
everybody.
have to do it.
Sorry,
Man.
everybody. We gotta
Oh,
figure.
the fifth wave.
That's it. It's fucking it.
Holy man!
That
Talk about a movie that died on arrival.
Yeah.
This came out in This was a January movie,
Yep.
back when January movies were still not the best quality. And this came out in 2016, towards the tail end of like there was a huge push to adapt like every young adult
God, it
novel
was such
because The Hunger Games was such
such
a
an
big
annoying
hit.
time. Such an annoying
And
time.
so they just got every like young up and coming actress, put them in
Fucking the Divergent
these
series.
movies.
The damn.
Yeah, there was Divergent. Of course, Hunger Games was a big hit
You know what
because of Jennifer Lawrence.
You know what I compare that time to? The time when I was a kid and there was like 20 boy bands. That was the boy band period of film. Was that period where like all these young adult novels got adapted. That's what I feel like it was.
And what's interesting is that all of like the young cast back then have all gone on to become like young adult actors now that you kind of know, like Chloe Grace Moretz, Saoirse Ronan, I think was in something like that. Of course, Jennifer Lawrence, she's won like 2 Oscars or whatever.
Oh, of course, Twilight.
Yeah, Kristen Stewart. Twilight kind of kicked that off in the 2000s. Harry Potter, of course, kicked that off in the early 2000s, all the way up to early 2010s. But there was just a huge push for young adult novel series to be made into movies, and it's kind of died out ever since.
I mean, like Harry Potter is a little different. Harry Potter's like it is young adult, but it's also kind of like a little bit more for everybody.
Mm.
I think that had a broader appeal than maybe
Yeah.
some of them other ones.
What's interesting about you mentioned Divergent, they never even ended that series. By the time they got to a certain number of movie, the interest in that type of genre, or the interest really in that series
I,
was so down that they didn't even make a final movie to close it out.
yeah, I think they
They just
talked
it
about
just it's just gone.
yeah, I think they talked about doing like a series to end it,
Yeah,
and then that
and they
didn't
never
happen.
did. And this
Yeah,
was years ago.
yeah,
I remember Mortal Instruments was
yeah.
another one,
Hmm.
or something like that. Yeah, there was a lot of them, but I know what you're talking about. But back to Skyline. Skyline is a movie that I like I said, I remember when it came out, like an alien invasion movie. It's made the rounds on cable television for many, many years.
Yeah.
It's been on Blu-ray for well over a decade. I've seen it in so many bargain bins. When Walmart used to have their giant 5.99 bargain bins, they used to have tons of them in there. Um, but yeah, it's getting a 4K release in May from Shout Factory. So if you want it, it's coming.
Please, if anybody was had a fervor for this, please let us know because we'd like to know.
There was another film at the time, and I can't remember, and it's killing me. It was like an LA
Oh, you're
invasion
talking about
movie,
Battle
another one.
LA?
Battle LA.
Yeah,
Goodness
yeah, the one
gracious.
with Aaron Eckhart in it. Yeah, he
Yes.
was like a
Oh
soldier,
my
and it was all
goodness.
like
Where's my 4K of that?
following soldiers through different, the war zones. I never saw it. I just remember it being out. That's
Yeah,
what happens
Battle
when you
Los
work in a movie
Angeles.
theater. A movie theater, you just kind of remember that there was every week you got new movies, and you just kind of remember. I
Yeah,
remember the posters.
I love the premise. The premise of Battle Los Angeles or Battle LA is a squad of U.S. Marines becomes the last line of defense against a global invasion.
Yeah,
That's that could
sure,
be a premise for any of those alien
sure.
invasion films.
Yeah,
But yes, with Aaron Eckhart, goodness gracious, Michelle Rodriguez, Bridget Moynihan, goodness, what a time to be alive.
yeah.
But speaking of, I guess, a time to be alive, we got some more stuff coming from Shout Factory.
We do. There's a film series here that recently got a release from 88 Films in the UK, is now getting its US release here, and that's the Tiger Cage trilogy. Um, I know we talked about these before, so I mean, Andrew, I believe you've seen these. Did you see all
I
these?
saw the first
The
two. I
first
saw
one?
Tiger Cage and then Tiger Cage 2
Okay.
when that 88 announcement came out. It looks like Shout Factory is picking up a lot of the Region A licenses for a lot of stuff we've been talking about that comes out from these other UK labels like 88 and Arrow and Eureka. And they've done it with a few of these. Like they're doing it with the Bruce Lee films.
Yeah.
They're doing it with Sonny Chiba.
The
They're doing it with
Jackie
a
Chan
couple of
stuff.
other ones. Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this is their version of that. I have no idea when it comes to special features if they're going to carry over.
We never do it.
If you already,
We never
if
do a Shout Factory.
yeah, we don't know until much later on. If you have the 88 films release, chances are you're fine. I mean, I don't see anything being different. If anything, you may end up getting exclusive stuff through 88 for all we know.
I can only imagine that there's not much that's going to be different and better than that 88 films release. I'm guessing that release is probably going to be a better release even after something comes out about this. But that's just
I
me.
think that yeah, the 88 release I think has a better cover art as well.
Well, yeah, even
If you
just the
care about those
aesthetics of it.
things.
Aesthetics already look just better to me anyway. But the other stuff we have here, we also I watched this one. This is a film from the early 2000s, I believe 2004. Yes, and that's Highwaymen, which stars Jim Caviezel, or Jesus as we call him. And yeah, it's directed by Robert Harmon, who also directed a big film that's getting a great release soon by Second Sight. My mind just went blank. The Hitcher.
Sure.
Yeah, The Hitcher by Robert Harmon. So this film is actually in a sense, kind of a remake of
I was
The
gonna say
Hitcher.
it sounds familiar.
It's kind of I mean, like in a way, like it's very much got similar vibes, some desert landscapes, but he kind of brings the idea and he takes it into the city, and also the character that is played by Rugger Howard in the Hitcher is kind of played by he's more got a he kind of puts a road game spin on the story. So another Australian film, Road Games, kind of almost mixes in with the Hitcher, and it's not terrible. The story, Jim Caviezel's wife is killed by this kind of faceless road maniac at the very beginning of the story, and then he spends 5 years trying to track this guy. He's been tracking him all over Middle America, him killing people, and usually it's women, and and so then we catch up when the story is really starting. He goes after this one woman, and then he saves her, and then there's an entanglement going on there and a cat and mouseness going on. So it's not a very complicated story. The movie's only about an hour and a half long, so it's really quick. But there's some interesting stuff in here, especially with the killer. He's got a very interesting aesthetic to him. Not terrible, but not great. I just say it's kind of an enjoyable, Sunday afternoon watch. Quick, gets to the point. Not a lot of thought in there, but not terrible. Have you seen it? AJ?
I have not seen it actually.
Yeah.
And this came out, I think, 2003.
2004 is what it says here.
Oh, okay. I was 1 year off.
I did say this at the beginning that it came out.
Sounds very. Well, I was completely distracted by everything else going on my screen. But no, I haven't seen it. I wanted to watch it in time here, but I got caught up in just binge watching Vinegar Syndrome.
Well, I can say this:
stuff.
The movie could have been a tad better if Jim Caviezel would have just been Jesus going after this guy. If he was as
the Hitcher.
Kind of makes me think of the whole Family Guy thing where it's like the Jesus, like I was happy Jesus. Exactly. And it's like the whole Jesus franchise. He's like jumping in the car.
I don't know if this is real. I don't know if it's not real. I think they're making a sequel to Passion of the Christ.
They've been talking about it, Resurrection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson's been talking about making Resurrection for years, and I don't know if it's real or not, but I mean,
it does make me think of the Family Guy, like kind of rip off of Passion of the Christ too, where he's in modern day.
You're crazy, Jesus! You're crazy!
Yeah,
he's got Chris Tucker's in the
Chris
car.
Tucker, and it's basically just a rush hour with Jesus.
Yeah.
But we do have some other stuff here. One movie I did get to see is The Morning After, which is directed by Sidney Lumet, which has caught my eyeballs immediately.
One, yeah. I might have to get this one then.
I'm gonna have to get it because I got my Sidney Lumet section. It's gonna happen. I don't have a lot of his '80s work. This came out in 1986, starring Jane Fonda, Jeff Bridges, Raul Julia is in the film. Also, Kathy Bates is in one scene.
And
it's like, wow, that's Kathy Bates.
That's like
she's in this movie.
So is it like the scene in Wayne's World 2 when they just get Charlton Heston for the one scene?
Yes, exactly.
Does he
just randomly
just a dramatic one scene? Yeah.
Except like Kathy Bates at the time, I don't believe she was a known actress at the time.
No.
Because this
is before Misery.
4 years before Misery, I think, or several years before Misery and anything like that. She's been in so many things over the years. This is one of her earliest stuff. She had done work in the 70s, like late 70s and early 80s and whatnot, TV movies. I think The Morning After. No, I was gonna say I thought it was her first movie, but no, it looks like her second or third movie in her career. But she's in it for one scene. Like Jeff Bridges, is going around the apartment building, asking questions about something, and she happens to be one of the people who live there. So you just see her in the doorway talking to Jeff Bridges. But this movie is not based on this movie. The premise of this is that Jane Fonda is an actress, and one day she wakes up in an apartment building and she doesn't know she doesn't know how she got there. Yeah. It's one of those situations. And then the person next to her is dead, and it looks like he was killed some way. So she immediately believes that she must have done it. Yeah. So she freaks out, tries to run away from the situation, tries to clean up the situation, tries to get out of town. And she ends up while at the airport running into Jeff Bridges' character, and they end up striking up a romance of all things. And they have this interesting relationship back and forth, chemistry and all this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, he gets involved in trying to figure out what happened with this situation
Yeah.
with Jane Fonda. But what is interesting is that that's almost the MacGuffin of the film, and it's not the main focus. The movie shifts to being this romance relationship film with Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges, and that situation becomes kind of like the B plot of the movie,
Mm.
which you would think it would be the A plot of the movie because it's the immediate thing that happens, but it becomes more of a MacGuffin, just a thing hanging over Jane Fonda's character, and the movie just becomes more of a relationship film, more of a character film between their two characters and their relationship that just kind of springs out of nowhere, really. And yeah, so it kind of takes you for a little loop because it sells itself as like a murder mystery,
Mm.
like thriller type of situation, and it's not.
Hmm.
So that may throw people off. But it was okay. I didn't think it was a great film, which is kind of disappointing because it is Sidney Lumet and it does star, Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges. But I thought it was fine.
Well,
I thought it was
I
fine.
mean, look, such a long career that Sidney Lumet has from the
Mm.
50s all the way up till like early 2010s. Um, I mean, he did so many great films, and so this is where that argument comes in that I can't ever agree with Tarantino about his idea of like I'm just gonna stop making movies after 10 because I want my filmography to be like basically perfect. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, but there's a lot of interesting films that the filmmakers you love make in them times when they're figuring things out. When they're not always. Sometimes them lesser films have some weird things in them, or they're that he was the filmmaker's experimenting with, or
Yeah,
you
I
know,
find that the lesser films, in quotes, from certain
yeah,
well-known directors can be rather fascinating
yeah,
for many reasons. Like, when did they do this in their career? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, when did they do it? Is it sandwiched in between other films?
yeah.
Is it like their other films? Is it not like their other films? Are they taking different chances? Are they doing different things? Are they going outside
I
of
mean,
their
for
comfort zone
instance,
and whatnot?
we talk about Akira Kurosawa. That what's the film? What was the film he did that was like just a bomb? Was it Kagamusha? Which one was it?
Kajamusha?
Which one was it that was it was like where he kind of like he thought about killing himself, right? Wasn't that part of
He
it?
did actually try to
Yeah.
commit suicide.
Yeah, yeah. And then because he had done a film and it had not done well, and then it brought him really down, and then he recovered and came back and did a film. It did a film that did well. Like I can't. I'm blanking on the films that were
Talk about
involved.
dreams.
Well,
I think
Dreams
that's the
was
movie he
definitely
did
one of his later films, but
later on. It's a yeah, but I don't kind of know what you're talking about. Let's see. Yeah, it's. I have to look. To be honest, I'd have to look it up.
yeah, but it's it just the point I'm trying to make is I think we look at the films around that time of Kurosawa as being a lot better than they were looked at, then.
Mm.
And so I think it's great to get these releases of these, lesser known and some underseen Lumet, here. Cause
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I want all of his. I kind of want like if it's a director that I really really like, I want all of
what just
his
like,
films released.
anything you love, and this is the best
Mm.
way I can say it. Just like anything you love, you take it all. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's why I just don't understand Tarantino's point of view. I think if Tarantino made some films that were bad, but and some people think some of his movies are bad, but if he makes a really bad movie, you know, I take all of it because I like a lot of his other movies. I still love him as a filmmaker, his good and bad movies and all. And I just don't understand the need to try to be perfect and just
Yeah. So
stopping.
I'm not quite sure which film um that you were talking to, but I can tell you that the film that he did right before he tried to commit suicide, Akira Kurosawa, was Dodeskaden.
Okay, yeah, that's the
Came out
film
in
that got that's
1970.
the one. Isn't that the one that got the imprint release? Or
Don't
no, wait,
no, don't,
that's there.
Dersu Uzala was the
Yeah,
one
that's
he
that one.
actually did 5 years later,
Yeah,
which is the film he did after his suicide
there you
attempt,
go. That's the film I
coincidentally.
was thinking about that I kept.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kagemusha wasn't until 1980, so that
Okay.
was
Okay.
yeah, because I was looking at his Wikipedia page, and apparently he tried to commit suicide in 1971.
Yeah.
So I would have to go back and see, hey, what movie did he do right before that?
Yeah.
And it's Dodeska then,
Okay.
which actually does not have a Blu-ray release. At least I don't think so. I know Criterion released that on DVD. I
Yeah.
know it's on the Criterion channel as well as nearly everything else. Um,
But yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah.
I
Mm,
think that movie gets. I've heard people. I haven't seen it, but I've heard people talk about it and give it praise because it's not. It's just one of them things where it's like, it doesn't. Sometimes movies have to be reevaluated and they don't make sense at the time, or or the filmmaker's going through something that has caused them to make a certain type of
mm.
movie, and I just yeah
Sometimes the production of a movie
yeah messes up
is an
what the
issue.
vision is. Yeah,
I mean, look at David Lynch's Dune.
yeah,
Notoriously, that's not really his movie. It's kind of got taken away from him. It's kind of got created by the studio, really.
yeah,
Um, and but it's still part of his filmography, and I still have it in my
yeah. I
collection.
still want it.
You know what I mean?
I still want it
But
all. Yeah.
Sidney Lumet did a lot of films
Oh yeah.
in the '80s that I always forget about. Um, I always forget about even the one that just came out from the Warner Archive, which I still need to get,
Yeah.
Prince of the City, Death Trap, The Verdict. He did all
Death
3 of those in a
Dude,
row.
yeah, Death Trap is amazing. Yeah, Death
Yeah,
Trap
or
is
Running
good.
on Empty is another film that
Yeah.
got put out by Warner Archive.
God, he's so good.
Great
You know what?
film.
I wanna say this now. This would be one of the most difficult ones to do.
I know.
We should just do another run. We did it with, um, David Cronenberg.
Cronenberg.
We should do Sidney Lumet and do, like, a whole filmography rundown, physical media, um, if
There's
we
a
can
lot now that I think about it.
if we
Now that I'm
can.
scrolling,
If we can.
Serpico just the 4K of Serpico just came out, I
Yeah,
think, or is coming up.
yeah.
It's his early stuff that I think we still need to get.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no,
mean, of
actually,
course of
Long Day's
course,
Journey into Night.
yeah, Five Angry Men
Um,
is the starting point, but
right,
it
right,
would it
right.
would be fun to do an overview of his physical media releases, and then in some of the films that don't have physical media releases,
Mm,
maybe break it up into like 3 parts because it's going to be a lot. He's got a vast filmography, and maybe we do 3 different people to do it with, maybe like early, middle, and end of career, end portion of his career, something like that, maybe. But
right.
we're talking about hypotheticals. Let's get
Yeah, we're
back to
talking
the
about hypothetical.
releases
Keep
because
going on.
we need to get this. We need to get through
Yeah,
this.
there's one more release there, and it's an atomic age sci-fi double feature of
Yeah.
Conquest of Space and I Married a Monster. It happens.
Married to Axe Murderer. What?
I
Yeah.
know. So Conquest of Space already had a release from Imprint. Like we talked about when it came out back in last April of 2022. It was Imprint number 112. They're like over 200 now, or pretty close to
Yeah.
over 200. So yeah, that was forever ago. So I remember watching that for that. It's atomic age sci-fi, cheap looking sets, not good special effects.
Yeah.
They're very much of their time. They're charming of their time. I Married a Monster, I have not seen, but I almost kind of wanted to watch it. Both of these films, I think, clock in like 81 and 77 minutes. That's the time of the day. But I Married a Monster from Outer Space. Something is definitely amiss with the menfolk in this classic 1950s sci-fi thriller. A distraught Marge Farrell is growing increasingly alarmed over the changes in her new husband Bill, who's been acting strangely. I wonder,
Bill?
could he be the alien?
Bill? Are you
I
okay,
know.
Bill?
I Married a Monster from Outer Space. Can't get more
On the
direct
nose?
than
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
title.
Yep.
So that is it for Shout Factory. Let's move over now quickly to Kino. Kino didn't have much this week, but they only
That
had about
feels like
5
that
announcements.
feels like an oxymoron.
But what they did announce, I thought was some good stuff. It's actually 3 of these releases I want right now.
Okay.
Um, so first up, starting the week very very strong, was they're going to be releasing a 4K UHD of Stalag 17 from 1953, starring William Holden, a bunch of other people. This is the Billy Wilder film.
Yes.
I love this movie. I own the screenplay of this movie. That's how much I love
Oh,
it.
wow.
William Holden won Best Actor for it. It was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It was also nominated for Best Director for Billy Wilder. This is the movie that is the basis for Hogan's Heroes, which in turn I'm pretty sure was an influence on MASH, both the movie as well as the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an incredibly important film.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I might have the Blu-ray. I can't remember if I do.
Yeah,
I believe
if
Kino put
memory
out a Blu-ray.
serves, there is a Blu-ray of it because I have it, and it was put out, I think, by Paramount.
Okay.
No, Warner Brothers back in 2013.
Okay.
I have that, and then I think it may have been reissued by Paramount in 2017 because they had a whole partnership where one would put out a movie and then the other one would reissue it several years later in like eco packaging form for cheaper money. I don't know.
Who
It was
knows?
whatever kind of deal
Well,
they had going for a while.
this must be part of the Paramount deal, I'm guessing.
Yes, that's
Um,
my assumption.
but
Um,
yeah, it's
and
Billy Wilder. I'm gonna get it. So
yeah, this is the to be honest, this is the biggest no-brainer recommendation I think I could give people for the show. Uh, it's a comedy satire, but it's taking a very serious subject and dealing with it in a rather unique way. It's dealing with, um, yeah, it's a cynical. It's a how do I say this? It's set during a POW camp in World War II. Yeah, after two Americans are killed while escaping from a German POW camp in World War II, the barracks, uh, black marketeer J.J. Stephan is suspected of being an informer. That's part of it, but you really just get the idea of all of these different characters being stuck in this horrible situation and having to live with it and go through it. And that sounds serious, but there's a lot of comedy in it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so think of Hogan's Heroes. That's all. That's the best I can say
All
when it
right.
comes to that. But moving on from there, they did give us some details on some box sets. Um, Film Noir: The Dark Side of Cinema number 13. They keep putting these bad boys out every couple of, you know, basically every month now. I think they've got a new one coming up. This has The Spy Hunt, The Night Runner, and Step Down to Terror, which is a great title.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if you're collecting these sets, or if you're way behind like I am, you want them. These
At
all,
this point, I'm behind because they put out so
yeah,
many
damn.
this last
Uh,
year in this last few months that I am behind like I think like eight of these or something.
yeah, I'm behind a good 10,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe or more.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's that's this set and these. They're not only are they pumping these out, but they're putting extra features on them now. Each of the movies have an audio commentary, which is really cool. I think they're all getting 2K scans from 35 millimeter fine grain masters. So yeah, they're putting effort into these. People keep buying them. But something else that we talked about once upon a time that they finally got the details on coming out in May 2nd, is the Anime Wong box set. I feel like we talked about this like in the middle of last year. I feel like
Yeah, I mean, it feels a long time ago, but yeah, I remember they announced a bunch of stuff way ahead of time that they were doing this back when they were reissuing that first noir set, and then they
yeah.
decided, oh, you know what, we're just going to announce everything that we're going to do in the next year,
Yes,
which
so
is what Kino
this is
does.
another 3-film box set. It has Dangerous to Know, King of Chinatown, and Island of Lost Men, all in black and white, all from the late 30s. I think,
I
yeah.
did watch Island of Lost Men, and that's
Oh,
got
how is it?
it's okay.
Okay,
Anthony Quinn's in it, or
cool.
very young Anthony Quinn. Um, it's fine. It wasn't my favorite. These other two are more crime, like straight up crime oriented. It looks like
Mm,
they might be a little bit more up my alley, but
very short run times too.
yeah, they're easy.
70
They're easy
minutes?
watches. And of
Yeah.
course, and you can watch. These are all, I believe, on YouTube.
Oh,
So they're
probably. They're probably in public
terrible
domain.
quality, but you can watch
No
them.
doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt public domain, but, if you don't wanna watch them in bad public domain quality, 2 of the films are getting 2K masters, and one of them's getting a 4K master. Um, that's really cool. So, Dangerous to Know and Island of Lost Men are getting 2K masters, and King of Chinatown is getting a 4K scan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they're getting it looks like, audio commentary for King of Chinatown. Yeah, this is something I definitely want. I love these kind of actor or actor-eccentric box
Oh yeah.
sets. I still gotta get a couple of them to add to the collection, but I'm excited about it because Anime Wong just I don't think a lot of people know who she is.
No,
So,
yeah,
this will be kind of cool for people who getting an intro to her. But moving on, we've got, something I think it was dropped yesterday. once again, another Clint Eastwood film is getting another Blu-ray release from Kino. Stop the presses.
Mm.
But coming from a brand new 4K scan is Paint Your Wagon, movie starring Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, and Gene Seberg. This is one of the Clint Eastwood films I have not seen.
Well, I can tell. Let me. I mean, look, I haven't seen it either, but I have heard people talk about this film, and typically it's met with laughter because it's so bad.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's a musical with Lee Marvin and
Oh,
Clint Eastwood. If you can
I got that.
imagine,
If anything, that sells it.
well, I mean, if you can imagine these two very masculine men trying to sing, and they can't sing. That's the movie. I mean, like it's unfortunate.
Incredible.
It sounds like a
Like,
movie that
how do you react to that?
I don't know, man.
Ironically, it was director Joshua Logan. This was the last film he directed.
Sorry that happened to you. Apparently, this is not a good
Um,
movie.
he directed another musical, uncredited director, Mr. Roberts. He directed Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe. He directed Picnic with William Holden, which is a movie that I have. Do I have it? Or if I know I've seen it, but I don't know if I have. That was a Twilight Time release, and I don't know if I have it or if I need to get it, or
Yeah.
maybe just wait until it comes out. He also directed the movie Sayonara, which I think stars Marlon Brando. Yes, and Ricardo
Suckers.
Montalban. Yes, he only directed 11 films in his career. Now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, that's Paint Your Wagon. But I guess if they're gonna release all the other kind of Clint Eastwood films of that time, they might as well release this one.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's get this last one out of the way because I remember when the Blu-ray came out for this, and you would not shut up about it.
Oh no, this is a different one.
Oh, this is the different version.
This is the original.
This is the original. But either way, I have post-traumatic stress from it because you literally would bring it up every freaking
I'm
episode.
going to bring it up again.
You know, so now I feel like even though this is technically the original version and not the 70s version that you would bring up like every 5 seconds.
Well, it's because I feel like Kino posted about it every single day.
And you could have skipped over it, but you literally brought it up every time because you were so excited about it. You were like, I'm going to get it.
You want to hear the sick irony about that?
You never got it. You still didn't get it.
I still don't
He talked about it all the goddamn time, and he still didn't buy the thing. That tells you a lot about his problem is that he procrastinates on buying movies until they're almost gone, and then he finally goes after it.
Well, we're gonna get to that a little later too. But that's the little later thing wasn't my fault. That was the consequence of the
craziness. Yeah.
But yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956 is getting a 4K UHD Blu-ray release from Kino sometime in the future. It just says coming soon. This is the original one. There were 2 Blu-ray releases of this film from Olive Films. There was a regular edition they put out, and a couple of years later they put out a signature edition that had 2 commentaries plus a bunch of special features. Now, I posted in our Facebook group, I'm hoping that they got their hands on that special features from that signature release, just so I don't have to track that down, because I believe that's out of print. As I've been seeing lately, I'm pretty sure all of the licensing that Olive Films had are all lapsed by now. They haven't put out a release in, I think, 3 or 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're really doing anything. So all their movies are getting picked up by other people for licensing deals. Kino probably scooping up a ton and scooping up this one. So I don't think I have to explain this to people. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, classic horror, classic premise that's been kind of revamped and redone over and over again in different ways. Had that remake from the 70s. That people are getting abducted and replaced by pod people.
Yeah.
It played on the whole 1950s Red Scare of communism and Russia and all that kind of stuff. But they've redone the premise so many times over and over again. But this is a big awesome release. This is directed by Don Siegel, who did Dirty Harry. We were just talking about freaking what's his name? Clint Eastwood, Escape from Alcatraz, Hell is for Heroes. Don Siegel's name. So yeah, that's a big time release. I can't wait for that release. So that is it for Kino. That is it. Now we can get into 88 films decided, hey, this is a good week of the year. It's March. It's the first week of March. let's drop 3 months worth of upcoming releases. Some of which you know, some of which you don't know, but we're going to tell you anyway. So April, May, and June for 88 films is all laid out for us. Um, yeah, I love the information, but it doesn't help us out when it came to covering all this.
Well,
So
I could say this: we got to cover
yeah,
this fast because we got one big long thing to talk about,
yeah,
so
we
we
do.
need
So
to.
we're just gonna go over them each by
Yeah,
each.
because some of
April,
this we did actually already go over.
yeah,
The April titles we already kind of covered with, um, God of Gamblers, the Ark of the Sun, Sun Gods, I believe is the name of the movie, and then Tentacles and the Pete Walker collection, sexploitation collection. I believe we've all went over all that a
dude.
little bit. So
Yeah, and I can sum up Tentacles very quickly for those of you interested. Tentacles is Jaws, but with an octopus,
okay,
starring John Huston and Shelley Winters, and it is not good. It is not good. Um, but yes, what a rough movie. But yeah, like you just said, all of those movies are coming out in April.
yeah,
And there's the Pete Walker Sexploitation Collection, which has which has I think 3 films in it. Um, yeah, it's of course they don't have the link for it here, but I think these are all like the pre-order for this is coming soon.
yeah.
Oh, it's a 4 film box set. My bad. It's a 4 film box set. Um, it's yeah. So what's the ones on the May slate?
May and you'll notice here, Severin just announced them 4K upgrades. Well, a lot of these are 88 films upgrades as well. Barrow Ground is getting a 4K upgrade, and
I just
then
got yeah. I just got the list of that box set, but you can just continue.
and then we have, of course, the masterpiece by Chuck Norris, Code of Silence, and then we have The Bloody Judge and The Untold Story. So a little bit of everything in this slate. You got some Italian horror, you got some Chuck Norris, you got some,
Yeah, I know.
you know,
What an
uh,
eclectic group.
you got Christopher Lee, and then you got like a Japanese like crazy blood fest. It looks like.
Yeah, that's a category 3 film.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a Hong Kong category 3 film. It is brutal
yeah, looks like it.
violence
Just by
wise.
just by the cover, it looks like it.
Yeah, no, like we're talking. Yeah, it was disturbing. It was, but it is like over the top. Like that's clearly a dummy whose head is being severed, and the blood splatter on the wall is clearly somebody with a bucket of fake blood, throwing it against the wall. But still, just the action of it is just brutal. The Bloody Judge we talked about because I'm pretty sure it got a Blu-ray release already, and that was starring Christopher Lee. I think he
Yes.
playing like a real cruel judge, like back in the day. Yeah, the Bloody Judge got a. It was part of a retro horror release from. I think that was Umbrella. Yeah, Umbrella released it last June. It was. I think it was a Jess Franco double feature.
Okay.
Or at least Jess Franco, I had direct The Bloody Judge, starring Christopher Lee, so we already covered that.
Yeah.
But the movies that were in that Walker set from April are For Men Only, Home Before Midnight, School for Sex, and Cool It Carol, I believe, is the last one. Um, and they're all like these sexploitation stuff. It's very interesting how like sexploitation has become such a thing people want to put out on Blu-ray now, like these kind of lost things that were considered like sleazy at the time are now getting like, hey, these are part of film history. These are part of the times. We should probably like know that these existed. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So moving on from that May slate, and also Code of Silence. Apparently, the year it came out was like one of the like highest grossing at the box office for like 1 week that it came out. I think it's opening week back in 1985, I think. But the last one is the June announcements. The June announcements. We've got Taxi Hunter, Magic Cop, Zombie Holocaust, and we've got a Blu-ray and 4K of that is coming out, and we've got Fight Back to School trilogy, and then Twin Dragons. I think Twin Dragons stars Jackie Chan.
Yes.
Yes, it does. So yeah, what a slate. Yeah, that's the fight. Back trilogy. I think it's a Stephen Chow starring collection.
It is. I did check out the first movie, and it's
Oh,
fun.
how is it? I
It's
want to
fun.
watch it.
It's fun. Yeah, it is on that kind of. It feels like it's something that could have been a Jackie Chan vehicle. That kind of comedy action. I wouldn't say the stunts are nearly as crazy, the fighting and stuff that happens in, at least that what I saw in the first movie. It's not nearly as crazy, but still fun. Some really funny scenes. I think that's sometimes a barrier, at least for me, is that sometimes in the comedy from other countries doesn't always fit. You know, our Americans have a different. I mean, we all have different things that we like when it comes to comedy. I mean, it's all different between all of us, but sometimes I find that there's a barrier there because you're reading something, so you're not picking up on the physical cues of the comedy, that go along with it. So it can be sometimes hard to laugh at something that's happening that you're reading, at least for me, when I'm trying to watch it too. So yeah, but I found it to be a fun movie. So I'd be interested in checking out the rest of the set. But as I remind you, Zombie Holocaust, also one of them other films that 4K is coming from Severin. So
Yeah.
so another option there if you're an 88 Films fan over.
Um, did Fight Back to School? Did the premise of it remind you of 21 Jump Street?
It did. Yeah, I was gonna say it is like 21 Jump Street, where Stephen Chow is like kind of the leader of a
Like a SWAT
a
team.
SWAT team, yeah, and goes in and has to kind of uncover the
Yeah,
crime
he
in a
goes
school.
undercover at a high school to retrieve a stolen gun for his captain.
Yeah.
That's the
So
premise on IMDb.
yeah,
Um,
it's literally it's kind of a rip from that, but it's yeah, man, it works. It's they don't know none of them look like high schoolers, but yeah, it works.
they didn't look like high schoolers in 21 Jump Street either.
Nope.
Neither the original series with Johnny Depp nor the movies
Nope.
with Jason Tatum.
Yep. But
Not Channing Tatum.
I thought you were just
Yeah, I was thinking of the
Jonah
Boston
Tatum.
Celtics basketball player. So I was watching the Celtics before this game, before we started recording. Too many, yeah. So that is it for 88, kind of rough shotting over. We didn't get to cover a lot of it because it's so much getting put out so quickly. But yeah, that's all lined up. So if you're interested in that, I'm pretty sure pre-orders are going to be up soon enough. Yeah, I'm
That's
fascinated by that. But
it.
moving on, we've got Vinegar Syndrome, right? Is that where we are?
Vinegar Syndrome partner labels. So proper Vinegar Syndrome, we got 4 releases here. We have the
Well, there's
amazing.
a 5th one, but yeah.
Is there a 5th one? Oh
well,
yeah.
There's a Picorama.
There's a Picorama. So coming to 4K is, and we just recently got actually 2 other releases from this director, Matthew Bright. We're getting the sequel to Freeway 2, Confessions of a Trick Baby. And in this one, we have Natasha Lyonne as the star. From the first one, we had Legally Blonde herself. What's her name?
Talking about Reese Witherspoon?
Reese Witherspoon, yes, is the star of the first one. But in this one, we're getting a new tale. The first movie was like Little Red Riding Hood. In this one, we're getting the Hansel and Gretel story twisted into from the Matthew Bright vision.
Of course, gotta take those Grimm's fairy tales and adapt them into modern day thrillers.
Yeah, it's pretty twisted as the first one is as well. I wouldn't say it's as I very much enjoyed the first Freeway for its twistedness. This one is good as well, but not. I don't think it's a twinge underneath the first one. I still like the first one more, probably partially because I like Kiefer Sutherland, but yeah. I liked it. Still liked it. I'm going to be picking this one up. I have to because I got the first one. I got to get the second one.
I mean, your CD won't let you.
It won't let me.
It always has that hold on you.
It does. I did also watch Primal Rage.
Oh, how'd that go? I wanted to watch that.
It was actually not bad. It's slocky. It's a slocky story about it, and it's one of the movies where it's got like this kind of slocky premise, and it's like got some blood and stuff in it, but it also is one of the movies that has kind of like a little bit of a love story, and then you get the moments where the music's like dun, 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 dun. You're like, this doesn't fit the whole rest of the movie, but it's this is a scene where they're supposed to be in love.
Yeah, what's the premise of primal
So
rage.
so there's this scientist who's doing experiments on a
Of course.
baboon, and he turns, the baboon has some kind of rage kind of virus thingy that he then transfers to this young kind of activist kid who's trying to let the baboon out. He's all about animal rights and everything, and he tries to let him out, and in the process gets bitten by the baboon, who then infects him, and then he starts to kind of turn into a rage guy. He gets a rage virus of some sorts, I guess, himself,
Y-
and
You
starts
do
spreading
know,
it to other
yeah.
people.
I'll say you do
Um,
know that's the premise for 28 Days Later.
it- yeah,
It's the exact premise.
there's a lot of these premises that are very similar to this one.
I know. You see a lot of those, like we were just talking about 21 Jump Street. It's like the same premise.
Yeah, that movie's
It's
way
like,
better. That movie's way better, but
yeah, I'm just saying, it's like everyone's like, oh, there's too many remakes. There's too many remakes now, and I'm like, they've been remaking movies for decades. People
yeah,
just
they
haven't been
just
paying attention.
yeah. I mean, they've been
Doing this
redoing stuff for
forever.
a long time, and
But
and,
yeah,
and just dressing it up differently.
I did feel like it did feel like a monsters, like a monster, not a monster type, like an animals attack type of movie
It's
mixed
not.
with kind of.
It's
It's
not.
not okay.
I mean, the animal part of it's not in the movie long enough to be considered an animal attack
Animal attack
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
I was thinking of like I was thinking of the cocaine bear. Don't ask me why. Where
Okay.
literally it's
Cocaine baboon.
cocaine baboon. I don't be surprised if that doesn't happen next.
Yeah.
There's a whole series of just animals on drugs movies.
Like I said,
Series.
I want to see a heroin jaguar or something.
Or,
Whatever.
speaking of another movie with animal name in it, I did see Dog Tags.
Okay.
But this is a movie that is part of the whole non-exploitation
Yeah.
subgenre thing. So during the Vietnam War, a unit of rangers is sent to rescue some POWs, but they get kind of stuck behind enemy lines, and they have another mission they have to go on. But as things progress and as things go on, um, things don't go well. They end up discovering some like some gold that ends up turning them kind of gold hungry and kind of just mad, and they're stuck behind enemy lines and they're already going mad as it is, and then you put greed into the mix and it just makes a recipe for disaster. And the movie is shot in like this really like moody, like just dark, and there's always fog around. It's like the fog of war. You're in the jungle.
Yeah.
You don't have your wits about you. You're at your just fatigued end, and the whole movie gives off that vibe. It's a really dark film. Like they have no like like characters kind of drop like flies very randomly, very matter of factly, and it's like, yeah, the that's kind of the way war is. Those things happen. They fall into booby traps. They fall into all kind of enemy fire and all kind of stuff. And they're just attempting to make their way out of the jungle, really. And you don't know who's going to live or who's going to die. It's a very rather brutal, matter of fact type of film. Yeah, it's a, but it yeah, I watched it in a rather poor quality. Pretty sure it was a VHS rip,
Yeah.
with, perhaps Vietnamese subtitles. I don't know. I think it was on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So I
Okay.
did, but this is getting newly scanned in 4K, so it's gonna look a hell of a lot better. There's a 52-minute interview with the director on here, so that is kind of an incredibly
Okay.
long interview.
Wow.
So yeah, that's Dog Tags, part of that kind of non-exploitation. But lastly, here is a
Nope.
Picorama film
We
called
are missing one more. There's one more here
oh
that you're forgetting
oh
about.
yes, yeah. So not
Nope.
lastly, but there is a Picorama film here called
Yeah.
Babe,
Yeah.
which I guess is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Um,
We typically don't have much to say about them because usually you can't find them to watch anyway. But they're sex movies.
it is 82 minutes long. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
an adult film, I believe,
Yeah.
from 1980 something.
Yeah.
1981, yes. But yes, there is a box set here. This may be something that's really, really
It's
interesting and
I
really,
I,
really
I
good.
yeah, I really do want to check this out more. But it is a Mexican Gothic, the films of Carlos Enrique Tabata,
Eh,
Tabiota,
that's not bad. Yes.
Tabiota. But I got the first two parts of the name right?
Yeah, Tabawada, I guess.
So,
Either way, I did get to see the first film in this box set, by the way.
okay. So
And it's very good.
poison for fairies.
Yes.
How was it?
And I wanted to see the other ones. Yeah, Poison for Fairies is actually very good. It's very highly rated on Letterboxd.
Okay.
If you go onto Letterboxd, um, yeah, it's a good film. So it's a film that is centered around these two young schoolgirls essentially. One girl is from this rich affluent family. She's the new girl in school. She's arriving first day, and she befriends this other young girl called Veronica. Her name is Flavia, and she and Veronica just happens to be a witch or into witchcraft, and she kind of ropes the other young girl into the whole witchcraft type world, kind of leads her down a dark road, and they start doing what kids do, just making
Yeah,
mischief, and going off and doing things they probably shouldn't be doing.
doing what kids
And
do.
yeah, and as the movie goes on and on, this poor young girl Flavia just kind of gets roped into these things and whatnot. And what I find so interesting about this film, and someone I follow on Letterboxd pointed this out, and it's very noticeable once you watch the movie. None of the adult characters in the film, or actors in the film, or actresses, you never see their faces. They're
Hmm.
always shot in a way in which they're either shot from the back, they're either shot in a point of view that's from the child's point of view, so you don't see their face. They're either off screen or whatever the case may be, because I feel like this film is purposely told through a child perspective or children's type perspective. Reminded me a lot of the way Peanuts does it, Charlie Brown and the Peanuts, where just the adults are this off-screen, like, muffled voice type of people, and like they
Yeah.
don't really matter because it's about what the children are doing, about what their lives are going and what they are going through. And that's kind of how this movie approached the storytelling, which I thought was really, really good. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie quite well. I thought the kids in it were really, really good. It's creepy without being overtly disturbing in any way. But it's more interesting in what it's saying, I think, about children's psyche and stuff like that. Um, yeah,
Okay.
haunting film. It's a very haunting type of film. I didn't get to see the other ones. The other two films in here are Darker Than Night and Rapina.
Okay.
And I wanted to see both of those, but I didn't get a chance to.
Well, maybe you should buy the set and find out.
It is, yeah, I would say it is 3 films on 2 discs, if anyone cares about that. New 4K scans from original 35 millimeter camera negatives. Um, yeah, looks like some video essays down here as well.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I think each
Yeah.
movie has a video essay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
definitely into this. Yeah, I
Looks
love
like this
seeing
stuff.
more Mexican films coming out a lot
Yeah, we're
lately.
getting a lot of that gothic stuff now. We just
Yeah.
got a bunch of gothic releases last week, and now we're getting some Mexican
Some more. I
gothic
mean, it
box
was
set.
Mexican Gothic last week too.
Yes,
The
there was.
Severin Mexican Gothic, yeah.
Yes, there was.
So,
So that
yeah.
is it for Vinegar Syndrome proper, and now we move over to partner labels where there were 14 releases.
Yes, yes.
Ah, yes.
So, starting at the top, I'll just run them down. Well, let's just go one at a time. Talk about what we've
Okay.
seen.
Yeah.
Let's
That's the way I
start at
wanna
the
do it.
top. We got Canadian International Pictures. We have Gina, which shout out to Jonathan Dole over there, or Doyle. I'm sorry, I said Dole the first time we talked with him,
Yeah,
and I
you
was like,
did.
that's wrong. Jonathan Doyle over there sent me an email with the screener for this. Me and Andrew got a chance to watch it, and also one of the features on it from Alexander Hella Nicholas, which we did talk to her about that a little bit when we did an interview that you haven't seen yet.
Yes,
So
that is upcoming.
that's upcoming. But yeah, we both got a chance to watch this. It's getting a new 2K restoration from the 35 millimeter print. Yeah, I really like this film. It's a film about a um, small kind of town in a snowy town in Quebec, where there's this kind of seedy seedy bar kind of this kind of whole hotel
Yeah.
mixed with this kind of lounge
There's
bar
like 3
lounge.
group yeah, there's 3 groups of people. There's this it's not a biker gang, it's a snowmobile gang
Yes, so
of, like,
again,
ruffians,
yeah,
we're pretty much pieces of shit people.
yes,
Um, and then there's a documentary camera crew who's making a documentary about the local textile mill and the exploitation of workers there. And then there is a woman who is,
brought
um
in.
she's like a dancer, entertainer,
Yeah, she's
sex
brought
worker,
in by
etc.
these guys that obviously are into some, you know, eh,
Organized crime.
running women, maybe doing some other things on the side,
Yeah,
but
organized crime.
yeah, yeah. So they bring in Gina as a dancer for this lounge bar, whatever you want to call it. And so she's replacing a female who they'd sent in before, who apparently was doing work she wasn't supposed to do on the
Yeah, she was doing
side.
work on the side, and you
And
can't do that.
now you can't. She was only supposed to be there for dancing, and so
Mm,
Gina goes in to replace her. And on the night after the first night after appearing for the first time, she is then attacked and raped by a bunch
that
of men.
the aforementioned snowmobile crew,
Yeah, and
and then
yeah,
there is a revenge factor that factors into the plot of the film. After that, but the whole film is really about kind of like exploitation
yeah,
in general. Exploitation is a really big thing. Not so much sexploitation or exploitation in any real specific way, but really as an umbrella term.
yeah.
And the film is told in a very low key way and stuff like that. It's a kind of a hidden gem, I would say, of
I
the
think so.
70s.
I think so,
Mm,
definitely. And I mean, just there's some really tense moments, some even some political undertones in there.
mm,
Um,
very much so,
and
especially with the documentary crew because
yeah,
They they bump up against a lot of the political factors in town. Of course, people don't realize this, but a lot of the Canadian film production is like government funded.
yeah,
So, if the company that you're making a documentary against, like, goes to the government is like, "Hey, stop them," chances are they're gonna stop you from doing it
yeah.
or something like that. You rub people the wrong way. But yeah, that's Gina. Gina, that's
It's
another solid release from Canadian International.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
got a lot of great people involved on the release. Like I already said, Alexander Heller Nicholas is involved doing a video essay. You have also Kayla Janice is in here doing an audio commentary with Justine Smith. So that's going to be great. So yeah, I mean, this is a stacked release. Definitely, I think I would. This would be one of the biggest recommendations of this list.
mm,
Next here we have from Yellow Veil Pictures. We have Calavar?
Calvaire.
Calaver.
It's
Um,
either Calvaire or there's another title to it. What is interesting, you know who does the cover art for this is Tony Stella.
Mr. Tony Stella.
Yes, Tony Stella does the cover art for this, and I actually did get to see Calvaire. This is a Belgian film.
Mm.
Of course, the language is in French, but the other title for this film is called The Ordeal. Came out
Ah,
in 2004. Um, so how do I say this? This is about he's this man who is a kind of traveling entertainer, kind of like I don't know, like a song and dance man or whatever, and he's going around to like these little towns, and it's a couple of days before Christmas, and he's traveling from one town to another, and he ends up his truck or van ends up breaking down, and he's got to um and he ends up staying with a rather peculiar individual in a rather peculiar weird place, and then bad things ensue.
mm,
It gets really dark, really weird, really odd, horrific, if you will. It's one of those things where wrong place, wrong time, bad
yeah.
situation, bad things happen type of horror film. Um, yeah, that's the best way I can
Okay.
explain it to people.
All right. Well, moving on from there, we got a it seems to be the big winner of this slate when it comes to sales so
Mm,
far. And that's Fun City Edition's release of the what year is it?
1983? Yeah,
1983.
yes,
Breathless, the remake of the 1960s film from Jean-Luc Godard,
it is indeed.
um, starring Richard Gere.
Richard
And
Gere, Valerie Kaprisky. Um, as of right now, as of this recording,
yeah,
the limited edition is gone, out of
yeah,
stock on vinegarsyndrome.com, and the standard edition only has 423 copies left. This
yes.
thing is selling out faster than I ever thought
I,
it would.
yeah, honestly, I mean, look, we're both big fans of Fun City, and we know that there's limited amounts of stuff coming from them with Vinegar Syndrome left, so maybe there's a fervor there just to make sure they get the titles that are left from Vinegar Syndrome, but also, um, I just think that this was a title that I've heard about it and never had gotten around to checking it out, because obviously I've seen the Godard film, and
Mm.
I recognize that movie. Though I mean, I think honestly that movie gets better the more I watch it. But I know it's not for everybody. I know that Godard's not for everybody. He's not really for me either. I mean, everything other than a few of his films that I've checked out, I'm not on the wavelength of.
Yeah, his '60s work is typically what he's known for,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Breathless, Vive sa vie, A Band Apart, Woman is a Woman.
But then if you go to the
And
later
then
work,
I mean, there's
it's
so much more. I mean, yeah, this what surprised me about this selling out so fast is this has been available on Blu-ray in the past.
yeah,
It's not like Married to the Mob. I think was something that was unique because I don't think we had gotten a Blu-ray before. But there was a Blu-ray from Shout Factory of Breathless in 2015. It's gotten a release. It's gotten a Blu-ray release in the UK um in 2018. So it's been available. I did actually just lie to everybody. So Married to the Mob did get a Blu-ray release in 2014 from Kino. So it had gotten a release before, but I think that Shout Factory release of Breathless from '83 um, had gone out of print. Has gone out of print already. I mean,
I'm sure. Yeah.
probably since it's getting a new one. Yeah. Um, yeah, this thing is selling out faster than I definitely expected. I was able to get myself a copy, or at least order one.
Yeah. Yeah, I got
Steven,
mine.
did you get yours?
Yeah, I got mine.
What is really interesting about this interpretation, this remake, is that it is b- it is essentially the same story as we got in the original Breathless, but it does things a little differently in a few ways. Specifically, I think with the character that Richard Gere plays, the Jean Paul Belmondo character. Yes, he was in Breathless. I remember. Um, he feels way more charismatic. He's way more bold. He's way more interesting, I would say. Interesting in the sense that he just, has a lot more charisma to him, and it comes out more overt. And they do take certain liberties where I think it feels more like a Bonnie and Clyde or a gun crazy type of situation when it comes to the relationship between the two individuals in the film. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I really liked it. The
Yeah.
ending is interesting. I'm curious what people will think of the ending for those of you who haven't seen it yet. Richard Gere, I think he's kind of an underrated actor, I think. I don't think he's ever really gotten
I
his
think
due.
he's like a lot of actors. I mean, sometimes
He's
they
been
get.
around for a long time.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has, and I think he's I think known for a lot of his, like, kind of, you could say, you know romantic movies, because he's a good
Mm.
looking
But
dude, and he
I mean,
got.
there is a romance in this film.
Yeah,
Um, he has a very uh at least in this film, he has a very James Dean type vibe to him. I almost feel
yeah,
like he's channeling James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, with the coolness, with the bravado, with stuff like that.
yeah,
The director Jim McBride is still, yeah, he's still with us, and he's still, well, he hasn't worked since 2009, but yeah, he did the movie The Big Easy, which I think just got a Blu-ray release recently. And he did, is that the movie I think it is? Yeah, he did the movie Great Balls of Fire.
mhm,
You know the movie with Dennis Quaid
yeah,
and
yeah.
Winona Ryder,
Where he plays
based
Jerry
off
Lee
of Jerry Lee
Lewis.
Lewis?
Yeah,
Yeah. I always thought that was a TV movie. Apparently, no, it was theatrical. I think
right.
it's because I watched it on TV. I think VH1 played it once upon a time. Uh, but yeah, this is another solid release, I think, from Fun City. There's a newly filmed video interview with the director that I just mentioned. There's a new commentary. Um, yeah, there's a booklet with essays in it. I bought this immediately. When it comes to Fun City, I usually go directly to their release right away to see what's new. But what's next up on the list?
Well, I kind of lied, because this one actually is selling pretty quick as well.
Oh,
I believe it's because it's about video games, and
oh,
that's the
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, golden era, a movie about the game that defined a generation. So this
Yeah,
is
it's already down to 273 standard edition copies
yeah,
left.
yeah.
So I missed out on that slipcover,
So
which is okay.
yeah,
I'm going to be honest, Steven.
I'm okay with it.
It's not a great documentary.
Maybe it's not, but I stopped
Don't you
caring
tell
about
you.
video games.
Don't you do it. Oh, I
Year
thought you were gonna say something
Oh no, no,
disparaging GoldenEye.
no, I grew up playing GoldenEye. I liked yeah, I liked the game when I was a kid. I don't know that I could go back and play it now and care too much, um, but yeah, I mean, I can understand why there's a fervor for this, and of course, the slipcover is amazing. Like it looks like
Yeah, it
the
looks like an
game.
N64 game box.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
get it. You know, it's
yeah,
it,
so this documentary is available to watch. I can't remember where I streamed it at, but it's about the making of the game GoldenEye, but not only the making of the game GoldenEye, but kind of the company Rareware who developed and, developed the game. And it's also about kind of like the history and the culture and the fandom of GoldenEye and stuff. But as a movie and as a documentary, I found it to be kind of all over the place and kind of, mishappenly shapened when it
yeah,
came to the way in which the information was portrayed to us.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's yeah, this is available to stream on Roku TV, Tubi, Canopy, Freevee. So it's available for free for you to watch if you're so interested. GoldenEye is a game that's near and dear to my heart. I played it incessantly as a child growing up in the '90s, having many, many fun times playing with my cousins on GoldenEye and stuff like that. What is interesting about the game is that it came out 2 years after the movie came out, and yet still was such a, cultural strong impact of a game. And they go over that in the in the documentary where, like, it was initially supposed to come out when the movie came out in '95, and it didn't. But yeah, it's an okay documentary. I don't think it's great. If you're a GoldenEye fan, you may already know the information in it. Um, but yeah.
yeah.
Moving on to the next movie.
And then I didn't mention this is coming out from partner label ETR Media. So
Yes, ETR Media is putting it out.
ETR Media, that's what I meant. I guess let me I just to pair it up. Let's skip to the really good documentary,
Mm,
which is coming out from Circle Collective, and that is How to Build a Time Machine.
yes,
And
told you it was good.
oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's about these primarily focusing on these two men that are both kind of in their lives intermingled with the idea of time travel, and one's more on the scientific side, literally becoming a scientist and kind of delving into how possible it is to do it, while the other man that we focus on is really obsessed with the film Time Machine, from H.G. Wells, the Time Machine, and specifically the 1960s adaptation, and is spending the whole. We've watched him the whole movie, spending tons of money. It has to be
Yeah, he doesn't even mention how
recreate.
much.
Yeah, he's like, I don't even want to say, basically, but recreating the time machine from that movie, and making it like out of like premium materials and things like that, and just throughout the movie's talking about our relationship with time and our relationship with nostalgia. I think is another part of it, and just a really emotional documentary. It really just fantastically filmed, just a real nice correlation between the two main characters, and like about how, and then it kind of comes together at the end, and it's really really beautiful documentary.
Yeah, I think people have been incredibly fascinated with the concept of time, time travel, time in general. I know I am. I endlessly fascinated about time, and this film kind of approaches it in like exactly the way you said. Just is time travel possible? It doesn't even answer that question
It's not,
or
yeah, it's not
bemoan
about
the
that.
fact.
No.
It's not even about that. It's about kind of this emotional attachment to the just the concept in general and the concept of time. I have a very interesting emotional connection to time and the way time is moving. Time is kind of also my biggest fear in life because time is unstoppable, really. You can't stop it, you can't slow it down, you can't really change, you can't really manipulate it. We're all getting older. Time's moving by so fast. Sometimes you wish you can, but you can't. Each year on my birthday, I listen to Time by Hans Zimmer and
Hmm.
have a good cathartic cry about the passage of time and
Wow.
life and whatnot. Um, but this movie really brings out a lot of that in it, and connecting it back to movies, connecting it to the H.G. Wells story, the
Yeah.
H.G. Wells adaptation of The Time Machine in 1960, which has gotten that movie's gotten a couple of releases over the last several years.
Yeah.
It yeah, it just got one from Imprint, a 4K from Imprint. It got a regular release and then a 4K from Imprint. It's got a Blu-ray release from Criterion, which was a
Are
hot
you
seller.
thinking of the right movie? You're thinking of War of the Worlds.
Oh, I'm thinking War of the Worlds. You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
We do need a Blu-ray release of Time Machine. Thank you for correcting me, Steven.
Yeah. No problem.
So but the Time Machine, um, yeah, the Time Machine, I don't yeah, it's got a Blu-ray release from Warner Brothers from 2014. That it does. But that could use a nice 4K upgrade. Um,
We're doing like an Inception here, where you're talking about a
uh,
release within a release.
yeah, I
Um,
am. I am.
um, but
But it
yeah,
isn't but yeah, this is a great documentary. Talk about just well put together, well shot, well edited. Yeah,
emotional, just everything.
balancing
Yeah,
balancing the story of both of these individuals and simplifying the science in a way where you may not understand what a scientist is saying, but you can kind of get it a little bit.
yeah,
If you pay, because there's a lot of scientific jargon within it that may like put you off, make you feel as if you're back in school, but it's so fascinating, at least to me.
yeah.
Um,
It's
but
it's the personal stories that go with it that can get
but
invested, I
yeah,
think. But yeah,
there's another documentary here.
yeah,
If you want to go to
yeah.
that
Go
one,
ahead. Yeah,
yeah, let's go to being put out by Utopia is Meet Me in the Bathroom. I kind of wish Steven, if you had seen this, because
I
this is
yeah, I didn't
this
get a
is something
chance. Yeah,
right up your alley.
is it?
Um,
It's about
because it's about
music.
music. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's about music, but it's about music from the 2000s, which I mean, we were there.
we were
We
that.
lived
Well,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, we lived it, and Meet Me in the Bathroom is about the music, the New York kind of music scene and the emergence of it in the 2000s when you've got bands like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, you got bands like the Strokes, Interpol, those type of like indie bands that were playing the clubs in the 2000s and then kind of broke out of that scene to a much larger stage. And this documentary goes into all of that era of that time. And you get archival footage of the bands at that time and what they were doing and all these kinds of stories and things like that. Also LCD Sound System was another one of those bands that came out during that time. And then it's also there's a portion of the film set with the backdrop of 9/11 happening amongst all of this, which is of course a huge emotional historical moment for our modern times and really for the entire history of our country in general. And the film it delves into that and the impact that that had on that scene, and then also getting into the stresses of it all. The classic when you blow up too big and you're doing tour date after tour date, show after show, how that breaks you down, how it can wear on you. The lead singer they focus on specifically of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Karen O, they focus on her a lot and kind of her stresses of that whole situation, specifically being a women fronting a band at that time and just women fronting bands in general. They get into that. It's a really good documentary. It is currently streaming, I think, on Showtime. Yeah, Showtime it's streaming. Um, if you have access to Showtime, it's on there,
yeah.
and it's available to rent as well. But yeah, good documentary. Another good
Okay.
documentary. I don't know why there's so many documentaries
There's a lot of
during this
documentaries in this, yeah, in this set
this
of
slate.
releases. Um, let's go to let's go over to Culture Shock releasing. We have The Flesh Merchant. I don't know if you saw this
I
one.
didn't get to see it. No,
I didn't either.
no.
Detective Darlene Paxton has a sweet but naive sister who wants to become an actress. The sister serves booze and skimpy clothes at a sleazy bar, hoping for a big break. But this bar is frequented by devious predators of young flesh.
Oh,
Soon,
shocking.
Darlene and her partner Mark are scorching the city to track down her missing sister, or sorry, scouring the city for a missing sister that they find is a savage and sinister sex trafficking ring running right in downtown Hollywood. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Sounds like the Paul Schrader film Hardcore,
Yeah,
where um, what's the George C. Scott, I believe, is looking for his daughter in that type
Yeah.
of similar sinister sexual, deviancy type of thing going on, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really comment on it specifically. How about the movie 8 Millimeter starring Nicolas Cage, where he's got to go into
Yeah.
that seedy kind of sex underbelly,
That yeah, snuff
snuff,
film thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that snuff film underbelly. That movie is dark
That
as
movie's
heck.
dark as
Oh
fuck.
goodness gracious. Um, yeah, that kind of reminds me of that. Um, yeah, I
But
did
yeah.
not get to see this.
Yeah.
The title kind of says it, kind of preps you for what you're about to go through. But what I did get to see is the movie called Nightmares, or it's called Stage Fright, depending on where you are in the world. Being put out by Umbrella Entertainment. This is actually part of their Ozploitation line. This was actually their Ozploitation line, I think number 9 in that line from Umbrella. So this is getting a re-release here, um, through the partner label stuff through OCN. And what happens here is this young girl goes through a traumatic event when she is a child. Her mother dies in a car accident that she may or may not be blamed as having caused, or she may or may not have caused it. She kind of really didn't, but she gets blamed for it anyways. And the film flash forwards like 18 years later when she's now an adult, and she is a stage actress working on a stage play in this theater group or whatever. But there is some murders happening. People are being picked off one by one by some killer going around who is killing
Mhm.
people with a shard of glass. That seems to be the weapon of choice for this killer. And the whole time we're watching the movie, we don't see who the killer is. We see some point of view perspectives. We see some shadowy figuring, murdering type going on, but we don't know who it is. But you can kind of guess who it is the
Mm.
whole time by the time
Mm.
the reveal
Somebody that was near
comes
some
around.
glass.
The movie may kind of like hand it to you like kind of easy, like
All
it's
right.
probably this person,
Well,
and lo and behold, it is. So not a big shocker there. It's a fine kind of 80s slasher, like low budget slasher film, an exploitation film, I guess.
okay.
A
Yeah,
little
that's
exploitation going on
yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
it's called Nightmares. But yeah,
That's
it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah
So
from
let's
Umbrella
move over. What are the other ones that you haven't seen so that we
that I
can
haven't seen. I
yeah,
did not get to see Beautiful Beings from Altered Innocence.
which is one I really wanted to see
Yeah, I
because
wanted to see
it
that.
looked
That's a
amazing.
brand newish film.
Yeah.
Those are tough to find. This movie came out in 2022. Um, man,
It looks like a very
yeah, like a coming of age type
yeah,
of
coming of
film.
age. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
it's Iceland's official submission to the Academy Awards for Best International Film.
there you go.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's an Icelandic film directed by Guðmundur Arnar Guðmundsson.
Okay.
What a name! It's got a lot of you should get a lot of Icelandic names.
Phew.
Uh, um,
But
y-
yeah,
that's
it's
something I really wanted to see.
I definitely want to check it out. I'm a fan of alternates and stuff.
I didn't get to see Saturn's Core in Guilty Pleasures.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, me
so
either.
I didn't get to see that. What else?
Then there's
Also,
the yeah.
there's a double feature down here from AGFA
Yeah.
of
You got
Shaolin Invincibles and 7 to 1. I really want to watch Shaolin Invincibles because I heard it has ninja gorillas. And I was like, I kind of
it's
want to see
fucking
this.
enough right there.
That's enough right
Fucking
there.
enough. Wizards, gorillas, blood spurts. That's what it
Yeah,
starts out with here.
it says Wizards, Gorillas, Bloodspur. It's a Taiwanese film. Um, Yeah,
That's enough for
the
me.
premise of this is like, I kind of want to see this. It's a
That's enough for
revenge
me.
film. Two
Yeah.
sisters go on a revenge film because I believe their family is killed or father is killed, and and they end up going up against wizards with who has a giant elasticized tongues who use black magic to control kung fu gorillas. That's what it
It's
was. It wasn't ninja gorillas, kung fu gorillas.
I wouldn't
Either
have
way,
it
it's gorillas with martial arts.
I wouldn't have it any other way, okay? Wouldn't have it
Yeah,
any other way.
exactly. And then
Um,
it also has 7 to 1 in here, which is an earlier film by the same director. And I believe it's another revenge fueled rampage.
mm,
This is the one that follows the murder of her father. Assisted by her rock star samurai boyfriend, Ting rages against all manner of street gangs and malcontents. They call it a gonzo Taiwanese battle epic.
yeah.
Damn. This
Mm.
is selling it really hard.
They're really
It
selling that one.
really is.
But
Um,
The Unsettler, The Life and the Music of Lee Scratch
yes.
Perry. Did you watch this one? No.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
streaming on the Criterion channel right now. This is a documentary that came out in 2008 about the musician, musical producer, artist, Lee Scratch Perry, who was very innovative when it came to the reggae scene of the 1960s and 1970s. He discovered Bob Marley. He
Hmm.
was a producer for Bob Marley for, I think, Bob Marley and the Wailers, like best album ever or something like that. Very eccentric, interesting individual.
It's
And the
it's
documentary is very much reflects that.
yeah, it's narrated by Benicio del Toro.
It
So
is
that's
narrated by Benicio del Toro, but the documentary is kind of all over the place,
okay.
which if you watch the footage of the individual Lee Scratch Perry, is very indicative of the, I guess, the person that he was.
Okay.
Kind of extremely eccentric individual. Um, like I said, it's an okay documentary, kind of like I said, all over the place. It tries to cover like him from like the 60s all the way up until like 2008, and it's like at points you're just like skipping decades and you're kind of like, what's going on now? I don't know what's happening. They don't really do a good job of placing you in the moment that they're discussing. They just kind of throw you in there. Like
Yeah.
now all of a sudden it's the 2000s and I'm like, he's in a store talking to people about plastic money and random things. And I'm like,
S-
what's going on here?
Sounds amazing.
but he's an incredibly
That's
important person.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
coming from Factory 25.
Yes.
And then we got from Deaf Crocodile, we have Assassins of
Oh, I
Tars.
saw this.
Yeah,
Assassin of the Czar.
Czar.
This is another one that you can probably find on YouTube. Um,
Yes.
yeah, this is interesting movie starring one and only Malcolm McDowell. Um, this has all new stuff when it comes to this edition. Okay, so the premise of this movie is Malcolm McDowell is in a mental institution, a mental hospital. I believe it's set in the present day, which I think was like 1990s or maybe even the 80s. I think it's set in the 80s or the 70s. Sorry, I'm way all over the place. But it's set in a more modern time. But he believes that he is kind of the reincarnated version of the person who assassinated, who was the leader of assassinating the Romanov family in toward the end of World War One. So the movie is structured in a way where we're getting flashbacks of him telling about those events very detailed form, and also the assassination of a previous czar in 1881, and he believes like he was involved in that as well.
So is he
So you're
is he
getting these
the
flashbacks.
Assassin's Creed?
I guess it's kind of like that, and you're like, and then the doctors are like, yeah, there's this one doctor who decides to kind of indulge him in this and kind of being like, and kind of play along with him that, oh, yes, I was the czar that you killed. You know what I mean? And what ends
Yeah,
up happening is this doctor gets so involved in it, he ends up kind of believing and becoming psychotic as well.
yeah,
Because not only is Malcolm McDowell's character believing that he was there at the events, but like certain physical things would that happened at the time would happen to him. So that
yeah.
and that ends up happening to the doctor as well. What I find fascinating about this movie is that Malcolm McDowell is in all of these Russian historical events doesn't even attempt a Russian accent at any point in this film.
Yeah.
Yet he's surrounded by everyone else who is Russian and has Russian accents. So he kind of sticks out in that regard. But I guess it maybe plays into the whole this is kind of a fantasy type of deal going on here.
Yeah.
But this is another Deaf Crocodile release dealing with like Russia and like Russian history.
Well, this
They
is
did it with, what was it? Stalingrad?
well, I was gonna say Zerograd. This is the same direct.
Zerograd, that's what it
This
was.
is the same director as that movie.
Oh, there
Yeah.
we go.
Karen. Here we go.
Oh
Karen
boy.
Shaka Zakavogoth. Zak
Shahnazarov? Shahnazarov?
Zhagnagazov.
Yeah, Shahnazarov.
I sound like I
Um,
sneezed when I did it.
yeah, so this is yeah, oh yeah, the same director of
Zerograd.
Zerograd. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a mysterious labyrinthian psychological drama. Damn, that's a way to sell it. Way
Yeah.
better than I did.
Yeah.
In which
It's. Yeah,
yeah.
I started watching this a little bit, and then I realized that I didn't have time to
The
watch the
patience.
movie. I didn't well patience, but time more than anything. I was like, I can't finish this movie. Might as well just stop it now. I don't know why I even
Yeah,
started it, but
it's dealing with the idea of schizophrenia.
yeah,
Um, yeah, he's in a yeah, oh yeah, I just can't get the time right where which time he was living in. But anywho, he's flashing back this whole time into those very important historical events in Russian history, like
yeah,
world changing events. Um, but yeah, it's a mysterious type of psychological film going on here.
yeah.
I love what Deaf Crocodile is doing. I think Deaf Crocodile is putting out some great releases. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
yeah,
this, like you said, a lot of all new features here, and then they do have a Russian language version of the film with different edit and score. So you got two different versions of the film there. Um, yeah, did we cover everything? I think
the
we
only thing
might
we
have.
didn't really talk about was
Oh,
Hypochondriac.
yeah, that's one I know you said you saw.
Yes, I did. I did see Hypochondriac, and what did you get? Wouldn't you guess? It's about somebody who is a hypochondriac.
Oh no,
What do you know?
I didn't see that
So it's
coming.
about this young Hispanic artist named Will, who at the beginning of the film you see his traumatic childhood. His mother has schizophrenia, and she kind of does things that someone with a mental illness would do. Things that are unpredictable, things that are frightening to young children, things that are just kind of out of control. And he goes through a lot of traumatic events dealing with that as a child, and then flash forward to when he's an adult, and things start getting schizophrenic for him. He believes that his, that he has certain things are happening to him. He's seeing certain visions of certain things. He believes that his mother is now returned back into his life when she may or may not have passed away several years ago. So his mental capacity is starting to erode, and we see him as that takes place. Um, the issue I have with the film is the way it deals with a lot of these things. It's like if someone was this level of having a mental type of episode or mental type of things going on, the people around you would have addressed this very sooner. Like there are people like he has a boyfriend. He has he has a father who he goes and stays with. It's like no one around you would help you out in the situations that are going on because they get more and more severe as things go on. So the way in which it deals with mental health is kind of an issue. But the movie gets very trippy, very psychological, very surreal as things go on, and you don't really kind of know what's happening from time to time. So that's hypochondriac. Hypochondria is a real thing that people deal
It,
with.
yeah,
It
it is.
reminded me a lot of that movie Safe, the Todd Haynes film
Yeah, yeah,
with Julianne Moore, where she just gets sicker and sicker throughout the movie, and nothing seems to be wrong with her. Because there's moments in this film, like Hypochondriac, where he goes to the doctor and gets examined and does blood work and does all that, and there's nothing, health wise wrong with him, medically wrong with him. His body is fine, but his mind is going
yeah,
in a different direction.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's hypochondriacs. I think that's everything.
That, that
Solid slate. Look up like couple of documentaries.
a lot of
Yeah,
documentaries.
4
Yeah,
documentaries of this 14 film slate and a double feature and a double f- and a yeah and a double feature and then yeah,
good
Breathless was
stuff.
a
Some good.
shocking fast seller.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in here this month. So that is it for this episode. Once again, shout out to David O'Reilly for joining us on this episode. Go check out Kubrick by Candlelight. Really great short film by him.
Yep.
Really well shot. I
If
just love.
you're a Kubrick fan,
You'll love
you'll get the
this.
references.
You'll love it. But Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06 as well as our YouTube channel Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Instagram or our Twitter. You can find me also on my letterboxd at Chasing Labels. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.